some teachers don't want to add parents as students because it just adds another participant into the class. But in parent mode, you can, when you're added as a parent, you can see their scores in a grade report and so on.
So just to clarify, the classroom code is the same as a parent getting into it?
No, it's not. A classroom code enrolls you as a student, and Ari, please correct me if I'm wrong. A classroom code enrolls you in the class as if you're a student, but a parent code only lets you see your kids' assignments and grades, but not the content of the assignment, as in like the handouts and so forth.
So that's more like the recap, maybe.
It's like an Aries report. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions for Carrie? Great job, Carrie. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That was incredibly thorough.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. And I mean, we all acknowledge that it's difficult for everybody. And I find this is terrible to say, I find a lot of solace in knowing that the whole world is in the same boat. So we're all doing great.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Okay, moving, any other questions for any of the teachers before they sign out? I mean, I know this is riveting stuff, Carrie, Jason, and Ksenia, and I'm sure you want to stay for the entire meeting because, at the end when we go over board policies, that really is the meat and potatoes of the whole day. So, but any questions for the teachers before we give them a gracious bow out?
I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the work of all the teachers, having 2 teenagers as well in high school. It's hard enough to engage them when they're in class. And engaging them when they're not in class is an added challenge I can't even begin to fathom. So I know some teachers are adapting better than others, but I think everyone's effort and intentions are really good. And if you could share our gratitude as appropriate, that would be great. Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, I just want to thank you for your time this evening as well, because this is dinner time and all that fun stuff at home. So thank you very much for joining us. And yes, you can gracefully go about your evening if you'd like, but thank you again. And yes, please share our gratitude and appreciation with your team. Okay, so we'll take a minute.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay, they're all gone. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the tech report from Ari.
Hey, sorry about the car office. My 2 little terrors are having a blast, and I decided I would leave. Normally I have these great reports, and I don't have the same thing this time. I have some data. I'm really glad the teachers went first. I mean, what they're saying is definitely true. I mean, we hit the ground running. I'm just as a reminder, some of you might remember we had an Outlook email server back in the day. And that kind of leads me to what kind of volume we're going with. Actually, I'll share my screen and just flip through some slides real quick, if that's all right. They're basically just screenshots. 1 second. And there we go. Okay. So present, window, and I guess I'm just gonna have to share my whole screen. Good times. Oh wait, there it goes. Okay. Give it just a second. I'm hoping everybody can see that. You'd think I'd be better at this. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody if they can see the, okay, cool. So we have about 2,700 active accounts. That's more than it should be. And the reason why is some high school graduates, we let them hang on to their emails for a while. There's also more people in the district than it seems like. We provide it for kudos. Our servers, we have automated systems. There's a lot. But basically, we're at 2,700 accounts now, and this is a fun one. Well, that's May 12th. May 12th, there were 958 Chromebooks active, and it wasn't just that they were active at that time. They had been active regularly for 7 days. So that's pretty good. There was a day when we opened all the Chromebooks to deploy everything, and that's the last big spike that we see. But seeing that many Chromebooks online, and that their 7-day active averages is really good. I started looking at this data, and I just want to say something about all the data that I've been seeing, because I get to see some big picture stuff. It took me a while to even understand it, and it was kind of giving me anxiety and making me nervous, because everybody is usually in the district and it's much easier to see everything. And then when everyone left, because we don't see the types of data that we're seeing now, because they're in the classroom, they're getting, and I hate to use this term, but it's true, they're getting real instruction. Where they're not on the Chromebook all the time. Everyone's not sending emails all the time or doing meets all the time. They're getting real instruction. So the data that I'm seeing is these massive spikes. And the nerd computer part of me, analyst, for a second made me think, well, every single student should be, and I'm looking at all these numbers, and I had to step back and really look at it all. And I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. They're doing paper packets. I had to start looking at all the details. There's a lot of paper packets out there. Some people don't have internet. There was a lot of differences that I had to come to terms with to realize. And so I reached out to a couple of other district techs, and I was amazed at what we were doing. Not just what our teachers are doing, listening to them talk about the lengths that they're going to, I'm definitely seeing it. And it was nerve-wracking for sure. 14-day active Google classes, 225 of them as of a couple of days ago. That's mind-blowing. Sorry, I'm getting messages while we do this. In a single day, and granted it was a peak day, 1 Google Drawing added, 11 Google Forms added, 300 Google presentations added, 35 spreadsheets, 858 Google Docs, and just about 6,300 other types, which could be anything from a Word document to a piece of art. I've never seen this before. This is really, really amazing. Email, just a quick example so you understand how much people are reaching in and out. I guess, let me go back. The red graph is spam, which is hilarious because, of course, we're going to see an influx of spam and hacking during a horrible event like this. But Google's catching it, which is really great. Emails received, and that's in a day, 31,805, and emails sent 4,052. That's a single day. The amount that everyone is using our resources has totally spiked, and I was worried that we were going to lose a lot of people in the cracks. And at first, I really thought we were. And of course, we probably are to a degree, but the amount that we're keeping and the amount of effort that the teachers are putting to reach out there and keep everybody entertained, it's a battle. We're definitely not teachers. I'm a parent, and this is a reckoning for me. I'm fully understanding what it is that they do every day, because I'm not doing it and I'm trying. And it's impossible. Let me see. I think that's all I have. Okay, and there was one slide that I was missing. Google Meets numbers, and this is kind of insane. 18,000 Google Meets connections over 30 days, and that means that's everything from every connection. People joining, people leaving. So it's obvious that it's not 18,000 meetings. But 18,000 Google Meet connections in 30 days, in a 30-day report that I run, that shows that they're really doing it. And the slide that I had was very redacted because it shows an incredible amount of data. It shows who's doing it, and it's showing where they're doing it from and how long the calls last. And they're doing it. They're actually doing it. And I didn't expect this. We've done PD, and we're a pretty proactive tech district. We've been going one-to-one. We've been going to Google. We've been doing all of these things and prepping, and we didn't expect this, and it paid. And most of the teachers were actually way more ready than I thought. I was freaking out. I was about to have a nervous breakdown going, I don't know if everybody's ready for this. How are we going to do this? And they all put their boots on and did what they did, and I'm really blown away because I didn't expect to see what we're seeing, and I'm pretty satisfied, and I'm really glad we made all the moves that we did. It was kind of dumb luck. I realized that we were trying to evolve and to become a modern district, in Northern California, small town, but we were trying to step up to what, other city and big city districts were doing, and it's paying right now. We're using tech that I didn't expect to see used in classrooms, and they're doing it. There's some great tech out there, Jamboard and other things. One of the biggest things that's impressed me is, and I saw it when I was running the report for Meets, is the amount that teachers are helping each other. A teacher will struggle, and they will jump into a meeting with 3 other teachers who will share their screens and walk them through it. And we don't hear about it. I don't hear about it. And I'm wondering, I'm not hearing from people. Is everything okay? And I'm reaching out from time to time. But when I run these reports, I see they're doing it. They're out there. They're doing it. I think that's about all I have. And I can answer any questions that you need me to answer.
Questions for Ari?
Just a comment. Great job on that video, man. Awesome.
Thanks. I didn't know how to say thanks, and so it took a minute. Yeah.
Well, I'm thoroughly impressed, and I'm so happy that we're not living in the 80s with the C prompt and all of that, trying to get this going. We really this is a terrible pandemic, but we did have all the tools right at our fingertips, and it's kind of we can look at this as an opportunity to trial run and not be afraid to try new things, because even as a parent, we're trying new things, and it's okay, and we're going to learn from it. Most of these interfaces are pretty user friendly, and it's great to hear that everyone's helping each other.
Well, and have to really thank Becky and Ari both, because you've been pushing Google and all the trainings every year, and people have been attending, and most of them already had Google Classrooms going, and have gotten really adept at using all that software and so forth. So thank you so much for pushing for that, because it really pays off.
We're going to be a lot stronger after this. I can't wait to see all the kids come back and the teachers in their classrooms with these abilities. I think it's going to be pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right.
Thank you, Ari. Great job.
Okay, thank you. All right, and now we're moving on to Adam Kubo and our CIF report.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to summarize kind of about what I'm going to go over here in terms of, I'm sure what everybody really wants to know is what is going to happen here in the near future. So I'll go over that first. I'm going to go over some data, some accomplishments from teams, points of emphasis from the NCS and also from the CIF. any type of changes that are occurring within either the NCS, the CIF, or within our own athletic program. And then I'll open it up for questions. So I'm sure most of you kind of want to know what's going to happen in the fall. And right now, CIF has not divulged any type of information what's going to happen in the future, which is pretty frustrating because NCS is waiting on CIF, our Coastal Mountain Conference, which is our smaller conference that's within the NCS, is waiting on NCS. And then, so you could kind of see it's kind of trickling down, and this is just me speculating, but I think CIF is kind of waiting and seeing what the NCAA is going to do, since that's big brother to us, essentially. That's the next level, and what the future looks like, but it's going to be really hard to see what that looks like because this is changing every single day. Especially with certain sports, looking towards our fall sports, such as soccer and football, where there's a lot of contact in those sports. What's that going to look like? What is going to be the parameters for admissions? Who's going to be allowed in the stadium or in the venues? None of that information has been communicated so far. So once I do get that info, I will get it out to the fall sport coaches, and I will communicate that with my admin, my immediate admin, and I'm sure you all will hear that information once it does come out. But it's kind of wait and see at this point. As far as some things that are changing, we officially moved over as a state. So if you were looking and if you're interested in the high school athletics, usually you go to maxpreps.com. You want to look at schedules, you want to look at standing, so on and so forth. This was a transition year for us in terms of the entire state of California, where they are transitioning to a new provider, and they're called scorebooklive.com. Won't go into the details. It's been frustrating for the coaches. It's been frustrating for the parents. It's been frustrating pretty much for everybody that's been involved. People really like Max Preps, but Scorebook Live, I believe, is the highest bidder. And they are the ones that are providing all the information in regards to the official roster, the official scores. And that's really important for the coaches because that affects the situation. So that's something that has changed just this year. Also, football, specifically in the NCS, not necessarily CIF sections, it changes, it differs. Every single section has their own autonomy on how they want to delegate their divisions. We are now moving to 7 football divisions for 11-man football. We were previously in Division 5. We are now moving to Division 6. You can actually look at, and it's funny, you can actually look at maxpreps.com, and it reflects the new division, so you can see which teams are in our new division. It's essentially almost the same teams. There's going to be a few teams that have, switched here and there. They're trying to implement more competitive equity, also amongst not just the football division, but also for all other sports. So, for example, I know Lower Lake for girls basketball has moved up to Division 4, I believe. They may have been in Division 5, but I know for a fact that Lower Lake now moved to Division 5 because they haven't had much success over the past few years. So that's just an example of what they're trying to do. So they're trying to implement more competitive equity, specifically because there's a lot of public schools and private schools, and a lot of private schools reflect our student population, and that's all in the past. That's all how the divisions were essentially divided, was based off school population. So they're trying to implement more competitive equity amongst those public and private schools. They're also, this is another new thing. This is completely out of my wheelhouse, but they're starting the process on just discussing what it would look like for esports. So if you're not familiar with esports, it's essentially video games and it's gaming. It's on TV now, and specifically with COVID-19 and ESPN, for those of you that are sports fans, you are missing your sports, and you will see on TV there's been a lot of video gaming competition. And it's kind of ironic because those discussions have started this past fall, and they're just tabling it. They're just saying who's interested. They're getting data right now, but I don't know if that would be within the next 10 years, 2 years, 5 years, if they're going to implement esports. But CIF is definitely doing their due diligence on seeing what the numbers would be like to see if that would be a possibility for all California high schools to implement esports. Those are the big items that are in terms of things that are changing within the CIF. Also, things that have been a point of emphasis for the section and also for the state has been, and I'm sure Mark Chimolino has communicated this in the past, I'm not 100% sure, but it's been sportsmanship. And within their memos throughout the year that I received and things that we're trying to implement, and it's not necessarily always on the field, it has to do with venue sportsmanship. Essentially fan decorum on how they should conduct themselves. So, for example, the Coastal Mountain Conference, which is the league that we belong to, they have a decorum, and within our bylaws, so we have to do it at every single sporting event, that if we have a PA system, that decorum, so it's a sportsmanship decorum, is supposed to be spoken by the PA announcer before every single home contest. So that's all NCL 1, NCL 2, NCL 3 leagues are supposed to state that decorum, so everybody's aware of how they're supposed to conduct themselves. And I mean, we've all been to sporting events over the past 10 years in high school, and it seems that it's not getting any better on how fans are conducting themselves in the stands. So it's been a point of emphasis. NCS gives our league the autonomy to have our own decorum, but they sent out their own specific one that is supposed to be either read at a PA system. And if you don't have a PA system at a game, so for example, if you're at a soccer field and they don't have a PA system, it's supposed to be stated at the captain's meetings. So that's been a big point of emphasis, and that's obviously really important. Sportsmanship is one of the biggest components when you're competing in a sport. It teaches you about life. It teaches you how you're supposed to conduct yourself. It teaches you to respect people, respect others. So really important that we are exercising good sportsmanship amongst our own league and our own section. Also, one more new item, and this isn't coming from the section, but it's coming from the CMC. NCL 1 is going to have a traditional competitive cheer competition in it. It's a pilot year, so it got started by Middletown High School, and we are participating. It's not every single NCL 1 school, but I believe there's 4 of us. It's us, Middletown, there's 2 others. Lower Lake, I believe, is the other. They're really into cheerleading, and there might be one more. Well, there for surely is one more because there's 4, but I don't know who that school is. But we're implementing traditional competitive cheer. And it won't be governed in terms of the CIF. It's going to be almost like a club. So it'll be separate, but it's essentially a pilot year. We're going to see how it goes. They're not going to do too many competitions. Their main responsibility as cheerleading athletes is they'll be doing sideline for football games and also soccer games if the soccer teams wish to have them at the soccer matches. That's it for new items. Some data to talk about. For fall sports, we had 147 total student athletes competing in boys and girls cross country, girls volleyball, football, girls soccer, and boys soccer. Some accolades that we received: JV football got an NCL 1 title. Boys soccer were NCL varsity, so varsity soccer, boys varsity soccer, they were NCL 1 champs, and they also got a playoff victory against Oakland Military Institute. So that's a big deal. That's a really hard thing to do. So kudos to all of those athletes. Winter sports, we had 62 total student athletes. between girls basketball, boys basketball, and then boys and girls wrestling. We had a few student athletes for wrestling. They qualified for NCS. I know Gabe Everton. He went the furthest amongst all the wrestlers. He placed at NCS, which is a big deal for a small school. So kudos to him. Boys basketball received a playoff berth. So it was a good quality year, and I'm also the coach for boys basketball, so had to get a shout out to my team. Spring sports, as we all know, got canceled, unfortunately. We were only able to compete for a couple of weeks, and it's too bad because we had a total of 194 student athletes participating. So think about our entire student population. We're just under 500. That's darn near half of our student population was participating in after-school sports. So that's pretty cool. And specifically kind of giving a shout out to track and field. You don't get this many student athletes in a big school. We had 110 athletes going out for track. So great job. It's crazy. Tara is some kind of coach, because I wouldn't be able to do it. So that's kudos to her, hats off to her. But that's pretty cool to see. And we just feel for all those student athletes that weren't able to participate. Specifically for me, I feel for the seniors. I still remember my senior year for my spring sport. I played baseball, and I really feel for those kids that are essentially robbed of their final year and kind of sending it off. It's kind of it comes together like synergy when you finish your final game. You have your senior day, and graduation is right around the corner. And I know they're feeling it, because a lot of these kids that are competing in our sport, or sports, I should say, let's be honest, like that's what they go to school for. That's what they live for. And I just hope and pray that they're staying sane and they're staying positive through this tough time, because sports brings people together. And this time that we're in, we're trying to stay separated. So it's this weird thing that they're going through. And I just feel for all of those spring sport athletes and all the athletes in general. So I believe that's it for my report. Are there any questions?
Adam, thank you. Sorry.
I have kind of a question or a comment. Being a fan and a parent, I think this is the year I've watched a lot of games over the years. I don't know if it's your venue to make a comment, but I haven't seen such inconsistent officiating. I attended a CIF game, and I haven't seen. I don't think we're all using the same rule book. So depending on what venue you're at, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with sportsmanship. If you flare up the fans because someone in the blue gym has this rule, but you go over in another venue and they have a totally different rule. So I have to make the comment just that if that's something that you can bring to those meetings to say, is there an organization that's giving someone training so that they're equipped to officiate and know the rules, and they're all using the same rules. If we're in the same, if we're paying good money for the CIF, and I don't know if that's the venue for that.
To kind of to pull the curtain back for you a little bit on how the officiating works, they do it by county. So you'll notice that when you travel to Lake County, you don't see the same refs that you usually see when we go to Willits or we have home games or we play Mendocino. They are supposed to receive all of them are supposed to receive the same training. It's supposed to be kind of a good old boys club to try to actually get into officiating. With the issue is now, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the sportsmanship, is they're finding people don't want to officiate anymore because it's such a hard job to do. I mean, I don't envy them. And I know sometimes as a coach, I could do better. We could always do better when you're communicating with officials. But they are supposed to receive the same training under the NFHS umbrella. So that's National Federation High School Sports. So to answer that question kind of in a vacuum, the answer is yes, they are supposed to. However, let's be honest, they will officiate differently in the city than they will up here. It's just kind of, it goes regional on how, and specifically to what sport we're talking about. For example, like basketball, which is a really tough sport to officiate because it's very subjective. So
right,
I wouldn't bring that up though at my next meeting.
Right. I mean, they're all very tough. And like you said, it's a tough position. But if everyone's trying to use the same rule book, it's clear. Of course, there's all kinds of variable, but I couldn't just not say anything about that. And then if there are families that still have uniforms, are the offices, every site office open Tuesday and Thursday? Is that the best way to get uniforms back to the sites?
So it's funny that you mentioned that. We just sent out an email to all of the spring sport coaches and also for coaches that have outstanding essentially uniforms or gear that we're going to start it on Friday. Jen Gardner at the high school should have a list from all the coaches. The deadline is actually in 30 minutes I gave to the spring coaches for 8:00 that they're supposed to turn in their roster for outstanding gear, so for uniforms, and then that's going to get communicated through the front office, and we're going to send that out, and they're able to come and drop their stuff off. I don't know if that's going to be a specific day, if it's Tuesday or Thursday. The office is open, correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Walker, from Monday through Thursday still for drop off.
It's up to each school site. We are also open at the district office if the high school office isn't. But I think what needs to happen, Adam, is just we'll have Bruce and Jamie put out an all call so that people know when the front office is open at the high school, and just reminding people to stay physically distant from each other, to try and put the uniforms in a bag so that that bag can be left in the hallway for 48 hours so that if there is any COVID on it, I mean, just not that there's any COVID in our land right now. I mean, anyway, I'm stumbling. Keep it in a bag, prevent the number of touches so that the bags can be placed in the hall untouched, and then we can go through a process of getting them recleaned.
So do you recommend just waiting for the email? Don't all go tomorrow and start?
Yes, please wait for the email.
Okay. Thank
Adam,
you.
Do you know what was communicated? Do you know what the coaches communicated to families about bringing in uniforms?
No, I do not.
Okay.
And all coaches I know have all their student athletes' contact info. If they didn't, they would let me know, and I'd be able to do that process for them. But they usually have a text thread or a group chat.
And I think we have the athletes per sport tagged in areas potentially. Anna is nodding. So we can send out a very targeted areas all call so that not everybody at the high school gets it, and we can give out some detailed information, and that'll take us a couple minutes to do. So Diana, wait on the uniform return for right now. But definitely everybody be on the ready.
Are there any other questions? Because I know it's a tough one because I don't have a lot of answers right now in regards to COVID and what the future looks like, but I'll try to do my best to answer those questions for you.
I just wanted to ask if the middle school would follow. Is that because there isn't there's no real group for them, right? So they would just follow what the high school decides?
You just kind of answered the question a little bit. This is the issue with middle school sports in our area. There's no governing body. Like we have a governing body, which is the NCS and CMC. The middle school just essentially they call each other and they schedule their own matches. So really, it could be per school base. So I'm sure that I'm just guessing if we're competing, they're probably competing. But that doesn't mean other schools will elect to compete because, like I said, there is no governing body amongst those middle schools. And I'm sure they'll probably follow suit with their high school as well.
And what I can tell you is that if the high school season is on hold, the middle school season will be on hold. Whatever guidelines come down the pike that force the CIF to make that decision or our league to make that decision, we will hold those same rules for the middle school. So the middle school is not going to do something outside of what the high school is doing. The concern right now is about the touches and how to keep people how to keep people apart. One of the conversations that was had today with Dr. Duhan, our public health officer, everyone keeps talking about the stable group of 12. Stable group of 12, stable group of 12. Well, we can keep a volleyball team to be a stable group of 12, but that ball goes back and forth.
Yeah.
The sweat, the breathing, the touching goes back and forth. And even if you mask them all up and glove them all up to play volleyball, someone's going to touch their face. Someone's going to touch their eyes. Someone's going to touch something. And that glove is no different than your hand. So that's one of the issues right now that everyone is trying to figure out. How do we do this? And I don't know if there's a right answer for it. So
just based off, this is just basic sports. Like the only way, this is just me speaking now, I'm not speaking for CIF. It seems if we don't phase fast in terms of getting released from shelter in place and these parameters, it has to be closed environment sports with specific parameters. For example, cross country, swimming, track and field, where there's no open environment, where it's a controlled environment. If we're doing split days, or if we're doing smaller class sizes in specific groups for school, I don't see how we're going to be able to compete in sports until we're completely cleared to do our normal routine for school. That's just me speaking, and probably what the CIF is thinking as well.
And I have to agree with you, Adam. I have some real concerns if we are only seeing half of our kids, or if we're limiting or if we're staggering our kids, and then giving sports kind of a bye. So that's a tough one. But we want our kids back on the fields.
Well, I have to say this as a mom and a former school counselor, is that there was somebody already speculating that there was no fall or winter sports. And I am worried, and I know this, I'm sure, is a discussion for CIF, but if you tell a kid, one of these 147 fall sports kids, then you tell them that the 62 kids that play 2 sports, that there are no sports, you only have to come to school 2 days, we're going to lose them. And we know that sports keeps kids at school. And I've done my spiel, but just please make sure that they discuss that. I understand where we are in our pandemic, but the kids, I just worry about what's going to happen. If we just keep putting those things as human beings, they'll drop out of school. I mean, I can think of some kids that I dealt with, the only reason they came to school was to play sports.
This has been a topic of discussion with us as administrators, because we know how we hold on to kids. That's the carrot. There are kids who are phenomenal in the fall because either volleyball, soccer, football kept them moving, kept them going, kept them on track, on point with their schoolwork. And in the absence of that, there's only so much cajoling you can do in a virtual hangout. So we hear you. And if we could have a magic wand to make this go away and get our kids back on the fields and back running and outside doing what brings them joy, we would do it. I think the hard part is that we are stuck in the middle, and truly stuck in the middle. So, and the other hard part is that we have so many different opinions about this right now. It is all over the map, to where people are saying this is a hoax, it's a conspiracy, to the other end where we have people saying, look, people are going to die. This is so incredibly real. We are just dodging a bullet right now, and our time is coming. So somewhere in the middle lies the truth. We need to be incredibly sensitive and try and do our best. And I know you are as a board. The hard part is we're talking about kiddos here, and it's just not fair. A lot of kids are struggling right now. A lot of families are struggling. So
even if they could just get back in the gym of a team, maybe we'll have very small teams, a team of 12, and there's just a practice team, and you can play maybe another in-county team. I don't know what the answer is, but just like they need to get back into, exercising and interacting and having that leadership that they get from their coach along with their teachers.
I know there's no answer. I just needed to say that for peace of mind, that advocating for the kids.
Well, I'm glad you said it, because everyone's thinking it. the hard part is we don't know how to get out of this. And I think Adam is spot on. You know, we unless we do some getting out of this quickly, it's going to be really difficult to get fall sports up and running.
Well,
Mr.
even intramurals. Oh, sorry. I was going to say even intramurals would be something if we could do that, where kids could at least be just within our school itself competing.
Well, and that's going to be 100% dependent on what our public health officer prescribes as reasonable, doable, and within the guidelines. So it's interesting. But hats off to you, Mr. Kubo. You jumped into being the athletic director, and I have to tell you, it's one of those thankless positions. And I know the first time that we talked about it, you looked at me with a smirk on your face, like, no way. And we all appreciate your commitment to our students, because you have been a real advocate for kids. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions that I can try to answer before I leave?
I have more of a comment of what Becky said, not really a question for you, but well, I'll just go ahead. So, you mentioned that, we kind of have to wait to see what Dr. Duhan says, and of course that's true. But I guess my comment is, there is a level of advocacy that is happening in different industries, throughout the country, throughout the state, and throughout the county. I'm involved in groups both with lodging and restaurants, and I'll tell you, the lodging group, it's the opposite of shelter in place, so it's obviously going to take the longest to come back. But there's been advocacy to make sure that allowing these industries to come back at some level is top of mind for Dr. Duhan or for our supervisors or whoever is ultimately going to work together to make these decisions. And my comment is, I think what we're hearing from other board members, and I certainly agree, is if there's any advocacy that can be done by superintendents, by school boards, by whoever, so that the health officer sees this as a top priority come the fall, I think that we should do that. So, there's one, and I'm not saying anyone's sitting back and doing nothing. That's not my point. My point is that I think that there's some proactive things that we might be able to do between now and August 15th to have the health officer work with other Bay Area health officer, whoever she works with, to allow as much as we can when school starts. So I would just encourage any advocacy to be done that we can. And not just in sports. I think just getting as much normalcy safely back as we can.
Thank you.
And Adam, I just want to take this a moment that sports in our community is, as you know, is a pretty big deal. And it can be very include a lot of drama. And I just want to say that this year has been very quiet. And I heard many people say that you are a wonderful athletic director and you have no problem with telling kids no and holding them to the rules, and have done that with grace, and still having those kids have respect for you and the school rules. So I just wanted to commend you on that and say thank you for the extra effort that you do in your job.
Thanks, Kathy. And thanks to everybody else for all that you do. I don't ever get to talk to you all at once, so this is the first time. I know that leading, just like athletics, leading an entire school district is a thankless job, and nobody wants to do it, but somebody's got to do it. So we appreciate all you guys' hard work.
Thank you, Adam. You're a rock star. Hug those beautiful girls for all of us, and Hyde and Jenny. It was fun watching you not even lose your cool throughout the meeting when, a lot of good, shall we say, drumming was happening. It was pretty fun. So good job. And thank you for letting us see your beautiful girls at the beginning while you were muted. I kind of wanted to just say, I love that. Wow. So,
all right, everybody. Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we are moving right along. This moves us to the approval of the consent items. So again, we are going to pull for sure 9.2. So now I will ask the rest of the board, is there anything else that's controversial or that you feel needs to be pulled from the consent items?
I just had a clarifying question on the warrants. There was a line item on page 4 for Chromebooks, and I just wanted to know if that was buying new because we needed more because we ran out in distribution, or is it upgrading? Are we going into upgrading?
No, it was more to make sure that everybody had enough to take home and that we had a few spares so that when they stopped working or broke that we could swap them out.
Awesome. Because I read somewhere that, I guess not this year, but the CAS testing, there needs to be a certain operating, like some districts have Chromebooks that won't operate with the new.
Ours are all fine. Ours are all fine.
Oh God, I thought, oh no, something else to worry about. Great.
We figured that out last year when that big announcement was made and people were furious. So we're good.
Thank you.
And just so folks know, Ari has established a checkout program with Chromebooks so that if their Chromebook stops working or something's the issue, they bring them to the district office, they turn it in, and we hand them another one that's working. So it's been pretty seamless, and we haven't had a whole lot of people have to do that, but we've had a few come in and just say, hey, this isn't working, and we, without question, just take the old one and give them a new one. So Ari set that up, and we have cleaning and disinfectant so that they can sit. So it's really, he's created a very safe environment for that exchange.
Okay. All right. Anything else that anyone needs to talk about or pull? Okay. Nope. All right. Diana, can you read the list then, please?
Oh, and I turned my page here. The P2 attendance had 2, were they considered penalties? Is that the right term? At Redwood and 3 Rivers on 9.6. The attendance.
Hold up.
I've never seen that and didn't quite know what it was trying to calculate.
What page, Diana?
Ooh, it's 9.6, the P2 attendance report. Probably on the, I would say it's second to the last page. Sorry, I didn't pull it up.
I'm not seeing where you're seeing penalty, the word penalty.
It might be another term, but it was Redwood and 3 Rivers, a little mini report at the end.
Oh, that's not really part of the, that's.
I've never seen that page before, so I just didn't.
It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the P2. It's a
okay.
Separate
Gotcha.
thing that's submitted and the county uses. This really should just have been a couple of pages.
Okay, so nothing to worry about.
No.
Okay, so I will go ahead and read the agenda consent items. 9.1 warrants for May 4th, 2020. Personnel action, that's being pulled. 9.3 is minutes of March 12th and April 16th. 9.4 is the Williams quarterly reporting for second and third quarter. 9.5 is the CIF designated representatives. And 9.6 is P2 attendance.
Okay. All right. And so can I have a motion to approve those items?
I'll move to approve the consent items, 9.1 through 9.6 with the removal of 9.2.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary and Scott. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, so we are going to move to board action items. The first one is 10.1. That was our resolution that we tabled from last month. We are still in the same position. I don't think the state shelter-in-place order will change between now and then, but this is an optional resolution. We do not have to pass one. Our legal counsel said she recommended it, correct? Is that the words she used, Becky?
She just recommended it to maintain transparency, but we have a board policy that allows the superintendent or designee to close schools, which is what we did. So we tabled this last month because we wanted to hold out for hope that we were going to be able to come back and have our students return to campus. At this point, I will tell you, I don't see that happening. However, you can table it again. The next board meeting, though, the next regular board meeting is after the close of school. So at that point, it's not going to matter.
Okay. Any discussion or questions from the board?
I just feel like that since legal recommended it, it doesn't hurt to do it. I think we should just go forward and do it.
And just to let all of you know, let's pretend that the miracle cure is found tomorrow, and all of a sudden we can all come back because something's been found. It doesn't mean that this can't be rescinded, but it's up to you. You could do nothing. You could do this.
Any other comments?
Well, I would like to make a motion to approve it.
Okay, Diana, and a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, well, the motion stands. Anna, do you want to call the roll?
President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Matson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
No.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Okay. And Anna, will you just make sure that you somehow cut me off if we need to take anything from the public?
Yes.
Because I don't always know when the right time to ask for that is, but
Yeah, I'll
just
keep an eye on it.
give me a wave or something. Okay, then this one should be quick too. Our governance handbook, we started this, I think, at our November workshop, and we've been fine-tuning it as we learn to do things a little bit better and more efficient. Plus, we also included the mission and vision that we worked on and vetted with the district. So I believe everyone's had a chance to look at it in addition to just being in the packet, but we've also red penned it a lot. So Diana, I think you might have sent me something since the packet was out and I didn't get it changed.
It's on page 8, and I can email Anna just a wordo.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for pushing us to review and try to be more concise. And I love the new onboarding section that Scott worked on. So I think it's more complete. And I would love to, we envisioned maybe going to a site, our particular site, and sharing it with either very quickly before a certain, being invited to some sort of meeting, so that people can understand that we really do have our hands tied sometimes. We don't want to get in the weeds, and this is our charge and how we're supposed to operate as board members. And once people read why there are rules, it keeps more order and keeps us on task. So I appreciate your pushing us to get it more to be updated.
Okay, so we'll get that one typo fixed with Anna before we get it signed. And I mean, obviously there's no hurry. We'll approve it tonight, but the next time you're at the district office, we'll get it signed, or next time maybe we'll be a stable group of 12. I don't know. But are there any other concerns or questions about the handbook?
Go ahead, Jerry.
No, I just was saying I didn't have any.
I just want to thank Kathy again, your leadership on this project. I know it's hard to hurt us all sometimes, so thank you for that.
Well, it's definitely something that gets, put behind because it's not a crisis or emergent. So thank you for sticking with me through that. Okay, so if we don't have any more revisions or major changes, I'll call for a motion.
I move to approve.
A second.
Okay, any discussion? All right.
Okay. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Matson?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Okay, so the next 3 items have to do with our bond. And can we kind of talk about them all together and then make action? Because I know Mr. Ison's on.
I was sort of tell you what the next three things all have to do with that, and they're all sort of interrelated, and they are in the order of what they're doing. Because the bond passed, the first item is to certify the election, and that triggers the clock to start or attempt to create a citizens oversight committee. And so the second item is approving the bylaws, which are pretty much there's not a lot of options there.
Hold on just a second, Wendy. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Folks, would you mute? We've got some background. I think someone's doing dishes, which is fantastic. So whoever's doing the dishes, thank you for cleaning your house. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay. So the second one are just approving the bylaws for the Citizens Oversight Committee that will eventually be formed. The likelihood of us actually collecting one, but it is pretty slim right now, but we need to attempt to do it within, I think it's 60 days. And then the third item is a resolution to either decide to begin selling the bonds or not. And Greg Isom is joined us, and he's going to answer any questions you might have about any of these things. So I don't know if we want to take the first one. The certifying the election is a pretty cut and dried thing. You're basically saying, yes, we're certifying what the county told us after they corrected it. The original paperwork that you had showed it at about 60%, and that was clearly not, the math just didn't work on that one. And thank you, Jerry, for noticing that, because that caused us all to scramble a little there. It actually was 56.13, I think, percent. So, which was the number we'd all been tossing around, was just over 56. So it turned out that 56 number was correct. So that's what this first item is doing.
Unmuted. But if we do that, that starts a time thing,
just
right?
For attempting to create a citizens oversight committee.
Oh, okay.
And if we happen to get, round up that many people, 7 people from all of those different groups of people to sit down and start a committee, woohoo. My experience with the first two was it is not the easiest thing to gather. So we just have to attempt to begin to convene one. But the likelihood is it's going to be a while before we actually can. But hey, bring them on. We'll have monthly meetings where we don't do anything.
Well, it looks like when it says who's supposed to be on the committee, I think we can get, I know we can't meet right now, but I think
we might be able to, but I'm just telling you my experience with it, with the first two. It was very difficult to get people. It wasn't difficult to get them initially to sign up, then getting them back to meetings and getting everybody scheduled, and it was painful. Honestly, painful.
I've got somebody that wants to do it that's been on it before. Wendy, I'll send you an email.
Okay, great. Yeah, and if you have suggestions for people in those different groups, love to have them. We'll reach out to them and see if they're willing to do this.
Okay, so does the board or the public have any questions as far as, I guess we want to address 10.3 first?
Yeah, is there anything else you want to put in there, Greg, that I missed or messed up?
No, you nailed it. As you said, by approving the resolution to certify the results, that just, it has to be done at some point. It's just a matter of when you do it, the clock ticks on when you're supposed to get members for the Citizens Oversight Committee. But as Wendy was saying, while you may have 2 or 3 people that are gung-ho about it, you may not have a committee in the first 60 days, and that's perfectly okay. It's just a matter of you're supposed to do the legwork, which is put something in the local paper, put something on your website to accept applications. The applications come in, and at your board meeting around, in July or August, is when you would accept the applications. But if there's only 3 people, then you accept 3, but you don't officially have a committee, because you can't force people to be part of a committee. And so the plan is, well, we'll try again in a couple of months, and we'll put something on the website. We'll put something in the newsletter. And as I said, I've seen a lot of districts and a lot of communities where they never had a citizens oversight committee, and you're perfectly okay. But, and then generally what happens is when you actually have the committee set up, the bond attorney, Courtney Jones, would attend, or one of her associates would attend the very first meeting of the citizens oversight to make sure that they know what their responsibilities are, and then they can determine how often they want to meet. Because as a citizens oversight committee, if you're not spending money, there's nothing for them to look at and make sure that you're spending it how you did. So they're probably not going to be meeting until you start spending some real dollars. So a lot of times the committee will be set up, and then you'll say, okay, well, let's just meet, once every 3 months or every 4 months. And then they meet the next time. It's like, okay, we're not doing anything. Let's just meet in 6 months again. So, you guys have the ability to pick who you want, and the committee decides how often they want to meet. So if you're meeting monthly, painful.
Yep.
Maybe
so we could.
I thought that was funny. I thought it was funny.
So we could easily. I'm looking at Anna, and she can't tell that I'm looking at her. I'm looking at you, Anna. We could put a Google form on our website to accept applications for people who would like to be on this committee, and that would at least show that we are giving it a good old home team try. And I think there are some people who would want to do this. If the golden number is 7, then we'll do our best to get that 7.
Yeah, and Courtney Jones will send you forms for you guys to even put on your website. So you don't need to create anything. She'll send you an exact form that districts statewide use when it comes to, well, here's the application. This is what you need to fill out, and you'll put it on your website. People will just print it out and they'll fill it out at home or whatever. Then they'll drop it off at the office. So don't create anything, because you'll have someone who already has created it, and then she can just email it to you.
Great. Do you know that if she can have that electronically so that no paper is exchanged, or do you need to have even between the applicants, can we do e-signatures? What can we do?
Most of the time, the applicants will hand deliver it into the office. I've never known anyone to not have it be all by, I want to say electronic mail and by email. But as I said, if I had a wager, because of COVID-19 and unless things start lifting, if it needed to be all online, you could probably do it all online. This committee's not, it's not like, oh, if you go 61 days, you're gonna get thrown in prison. It's pretty loosey goosey.
Okay, if we can work with her to have a completely online environment so we don't exchange paper, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, she's always been able to get me everything electronically, so I don't think I've ever had a piece of paper from them. It's wonderful. So I can reach out to her and ask her for that. I'll ask her for that. Yep.
So I have many questions, but they're all intertwined between the 3 resolutions. But first, I don't know how to ask these questions without divulging. Well, I have lots of questions, but we have the power to, like on 10.3, which is the resolution certifying, if we didn't do it this month. I'm just wanting to know from staff, if I think the worst thing you could do with a bond measure is not to keep the community informed. And if you're too busy worrying about the pandemic and worrying about school starting and worrying about all these things, I think that is going to shoot us in the foot, along with the economic times. I just want it. I don't think there's ever a perfect time to throw in a bond, but in the sense of for staff's time. But if we can control it a little bit, if this is going to fall into July or August, is that ideal for staff? To be able to keep people apprised of good and bad of what's going on. Or
the certification of the election is no burden at all. It's basically you're saying, yes, we're certifying what the county gave us. The next steps, the passing the bylaws for the Citizens Oversight Committee, that is a nothing. There would be a couple days worth of paperwork and phone calls and stuff if you decide to move forward with selling. It's not overly burdensome. It's, so to me, that part is not the greatest of considerations here.
Okay, because I'm just thinking if in a month, if you wanted to wait another month.
Yeah, the burden on staff is not, and if anything, if you did decide to go ahead, doing it over the summer is probably better than when we're trying to bring school back in some form.
Mm-hmm. But then, like Kathy was saying, all of the first two are just boilerplate documents that trigger timelines. And I know that by just initiating a form online, we've met that 60-day. But how, then with the third resolution, that happens immediately. Once you approve that, then they go out to investors and try to sell bonds.
Go ahead, Greg.
Not 100%. So the resolution gives us the ability to go sell depending on the timing of when the administration has time to do some of the stuff. So you approve a resolution. We don't sell next week because there's all these steps that still need to take place. But we can't do any of the next steps until the resolution gets approved. That's why there's a bunch of blanks in the resolution as well. Like similar, I don't know if you guys remember when we refinanced the bonds last year, there's all these blanks. It's the same exact process. So we can't proceed until this gets approved. So what are the next steps after this? We have to get the bonds rated. We have to get them their credit score. So that'll, take at a minimum a 2-week time frame just in regards to a calendar. It'll take about, 2 hours of district time sometime in the next 2 weeks to do it. So we do a meeting sometime, in the next 10 days, and then it takes at least a week to even get the rating back. And then when it comes to actually selling the bonds, there's a conference call called the due diligence call, which takes 20 minutes for either the superintendent or the CBO to be on that call. Remember how painful that was, Wendy, just because it's so boring. And then once that happens, then the following week is when you actually kind of lock in the rates of the bonds where you go to the investors and sell them. And there's 2 conference calls. Each one's about 20 minutes long on consecutive days. And then 2 to 3 weeks after that is when the district actually gets its money. So even if you were to approve this tonight, it's still going to take over a month and change for it to be kind of completed.
Okay.
And what is the time frame within which they would have to be sold if they did decide to pass this resolution?
What's the time frame?
Yeah.
Whenever you want.
But there's no time within which it must be done?
I have a district that passed a bond in 2008. It was to fix this old dumpy school. And then in the middle of the campaign, and they actually closed the school in September, and they've never reopened it since. And so the community actually passed the bond, and they haven't sold it, and it's been now 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So could they pick up tomorrow and sell?
Yeah. They could call me tomorrow and say, hey, we want to sell our bonds.
Well, good to know. I don't want to.
That is good. Yeah, because so we could pass it, and we don't have to start selling right away. We can wait and see how things shake down here.
Yeah. So you could pass this resolution. If you wanted to see how some of this stuff shook out, we would probably delay the rating because the rating is only good for, I believe, 60 days, 60 to 90 days. And so if you were to do this and then do the rating, you should sell bonds within, by July. Okay. And so, but if you're the man, like, I want to pass this, but I'd rather wait until fall, what you can do as well is you can pass this. You would probably want to get on the tax rolls, which I'm sure that's probably one of the topics of discussion, so that you could then sell your bonds in fall, and you can kind of wait and see how things turn out. As I said, when it comes to selling the bonds, there's a lot of reasons to sell them. There's some reasons to not sell them, and so I think that's probably what we'll talk about coming up as well, or some of the financial implications on how this stuff works.
Right. Well, I think we're all really concerned for our community that
Sure.
People are being really hard hit. I hate to add to the misery. At the same time, we need the buildings done, certainly.
Yeah, no, there's pros and cons of both sides.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about the timing to consider is if you don't want to, you probably don't want to sell them in November, because then you're sitting on a whole year of accruing interest before it shows up on the next tax rolls.
If you don't direct the county to levy the tax, correct?
Right. But it's still gonna accrue the interest. Yeah. Right. If we don't have them pay the taxes in front of you, but it's gonna take a year anyway. If we sold them in November, they're not going to be on this year's tax rolls.
Unless you directed the county in the next 60 days to say, we want to be on the tax rolls for whatever tax rate you decide you want to do. Because remember, I told you you don't have to go to the full $60 maximum.
Right.
You can direct the county, put, let's do a $20 tax rate, and you can, still get your bond money. But that first, for those first 2 years, it's just, or for the whole 30-year term, it's just going to be a $20 tax rate, because each one of your bond sales represents $20, roughly.
So we can choose that.
Yeah. Most school districts. So we just sold Ukiah's bonds today. Okay, they locked in their bonds, and it was they had a $50 tax rate. I think that Freya was a $75 million bond election. And so, but for their initial first 2 years, it's going to go straight to the $50, right? And then 2 years later, it will drop down to, let's just call it $17 if they didn't sell their next series of bonds. And then they're going to sell in 2 years, and it's going to stay at the $50, okay? What some districts have done is they will sell, instead of taking up to, for you guys, 60, they'll just keep it at 20. And then 2 years later, or 3 years, whenever you decide to sell your next series, they'll sell it, and then another 20. So then it'll be a $40. And then on the final one, they could do 60. I mean, you can, the beauty of what you have as a board is that it's just a not to exceed amount of 60. You don't have to take it to 60.
So if we just kept moving along, kept on this tight timeline, it could become on our property owner's tax bill, this next tax bill.
If you set it up that way.
Right.
I mean, the most cost efficient to the tax base and the taxpayers is to sell bonds and be on the tax rolls for that. You can sell bonds and not get on the tax rolls. You could sell, what's the bond amount? Is it 11 million we're talking right now, or 12 million?
12, I think it's 12.
12 million. You could say, I want to sell $12 million, but I don't want to get on the tax rolls this fall. And you can get all your $12 million. It'll be a good interest rate, but you are floating 1 year or a year plus of interest, because you're not levying a tax because the tax revenue is not there to repay it. So you're floating something called capitalized interest, which happens on almost any bond sale. There's some type of capitalized interest because you can't plan it perfectly, and you can, and the law allows you, because this happens for certain reasons in regards to whether it's structural reasons for bonds, whether it's political reasons, to where they allow you up to pretty much 3 years of capitalized interest, where you're not making a payment out of new tax revenue, but then after that it gets on the tax bill. So you could conceivably say, I want to sell my $12 million. I want to lock in a great interest rate, but I don't want to be on the tax bill this year. So I want to delay it. But as I said, it'll cost some additional interest because you're collecting some money that's spread out over a 29-year period, but that some districts do that as well. So you have lots of options. Or we can do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just very concerned with the U-shaped economy that we're heading into. It's going to take us a year and a half potentially, to get out of this, COVID-19 induced recession. So I'm concerned about the property owners, but at the same time, our needs aren't going to go away. The rates are low now. A year and a half, I don't know. And there's no perfect answer, but I also, I have children in the district for just 4 more years. So I'm not selfishly thinking I'm going to, do something wonderful for my personal, kids. It's for the community, so that when I come to Fort Bragg and that we can continue to have a beautiful school and have the needs of the school met.
Yeah, no, and they're all valid. There's no wrong answer, from a financial standpoint, as I talked to, Becky and Wendy, and I'll use, Ukiah as an example because I have the numbers right in front of my face. From what we thought it was going to cost the taxpayers for their first bond sale, before the election, where interest rates were the assumptions that we were used, versus where we ended up, we were able to save the community because of low interest rates, $2 million. And so, yes, that's $2 million to the community, but it's also spread out over time, as opposed to, you're paying a tax rate right now. So, for Ukiah, it'll be on their tax bills. So
did they do the whole amount at once, or did they
sold it in thirds? They sold 25 million of the 75. And so the other reason is that gives them some flexibility to where if some things do go wrong in the future, let's say, because odds are the assessed valuation, for the community, there's not going to be a hit for this year, for 2021. Just kind of like in this recession, if you go back, the hit for most districts didn't occur in 2008 or 2009. It was 2010 and 11. Okay. Because that's, just how the calculations work. And so what you have the ability to do is by the time you get to the next sale is where you have a clearer picture of what really happened. You can decide, man, I don't want to sell this because I don't want to, I want to give my community a break. You can say, I don't want to do it this way. I only want to sell this much because let's just, hypothetically speaking, let's just say you took it to $60, just hypothetically speaking. 2 years from now, if you don't want to do anything, that tax rate will actually drop down to $20. Okay. So as I said, that's when I gave you the example of each series of bonds represents a $20 tax rate. That's how it works. So if you said, I don't even want to sell this, well, then the tax rate will never be $60 because you guys control it. Well, I mean, within reason, we can't control if it goes from 20 to 22 or, 20 to 18. But ultimately, as I said, you guys determine the tax rate, the timing, and everything about this. So, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. There's political considerations and there's financial considerations.
So I have a question, Wendy and Becky. If we did break it into thirds and we went ahead and did 20 now, would that give us the money that we need to make some of the most immediate needs?
We are nowhere near making any needs. We have no idea.
Well, with the exception, we've got to fix the Dana Gray roof right now and the bus barn roof. But I think we can do that.
Yeah, I think we have some funds set aside that we could do that with.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, and I guess I'm still really confused as to this 20, 40, 60, 3 series of bonds.
Sure.
And how our community would be charged $60 versus $40 versus $20. Can you maybe give us 1 or 2 specific examples of actions we could take tonight? Like, what would we have to decide say the community would pay $20 in November. Until, I mean, is that like for 2 years until the next series of bonds comes, or who
Yeah.
We would be selling a third of them. The maximum is $60 that is supposed to be the maximum on this entire bond package. Let's say if we sold all of it tomorrow, it would be $60. But because what we're considering is selling a third of it, we could creep it up in increments and do $20 with the first series and then another $20 with the next series and then the final $20 to where you would be paying an extra $60 every year. But we can control how much is collected on that, or we can say we're only selling a third of it, but we're going to collect our $60. So we have some latitude to direct the county treasurer as to how much we want to collect on each series sold.
And is there any benefit to only selling a third of collecting the $60? That seems counterintuitive, but I'm not a finance, this is above my expertise.
If you're to max out the $60, that what it does is you're using a lot of tax revenue and you're paying off a lot of principal in those first 2 years. If you just go to the $20, I mean, you can choose any number you want, but let's just use the $20 example, you're just not going to be paying as much principal off. You know, that's kind of just what it really boils down to. You know, if you wanted to do a lot of technology needs, you know, you need to make sure that you use a lot of principal in those first couple of years. I don't think that you guys are really looking to spend money on tech for this, but for some districts, you know, you need to have $3 million of principal in those first 3 years to purchase all this technology. And so, you know, your options are, you know, I just don't want to do anything, right? That's option one, which is let's just wait and see. Option two is let's go for the max. It's the most cost efficient way to sell the bonds, right? But that's going to be a new $60 tax rate on top of what, you know, community members are already paying there. You can say, I don't want to do the full 60. I do want to lock in historically low interest rates though. So why don't I just do 20? And you can still get your full money. You know, you have to restructure the bonds and you may have a little bit more interest, not considerably a lot more, but you may have more. But as I said, you're only taking a small bite of the apple at the $20 tax rate. Or you can
and it's $20 per 100,000. It's not going to be $20 on your tax bill. It's going to be $20 per 100,000.
Yeah, unless you have a $100,000 home, Wendy, then it's $20. Right. Or you can say, you know what, I do want to sell bonds. I do want to lock in low rates. I don't want to put anything on the tax bill this November. So I'm willing to I'm willing to pay a little bit more interest so that I don't have to see something immediate on my tax bill for this first year.
So the bond measure states that it'll generate approximately $2 million annually, right?
You're talking the tax rate statement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about if there was no COVID and the economy is the way it has been, and it was today, and we were like, great, it passed, let's start selling bonds. $60, that's what the voters voted for, let's do it. It would generate approximately $2 million a year, right? Up to $35 million.
You're talking an annual tax revenue?
I'm talking about, in it says, measure be adopted authorizing $35 million in bonds at legal interest rates generating approximately $2 million annually while bonds are outstanding.
Okay.
With levies of approximately 6 cents per $100 assessed value.
So the $2 million includes everything, the whole bond in series 1, 2, and 3, series A, B, and C. This first one, I'm looking at it right now, would generate annually, on average, $760,000.
And that's if we sold it, and that's if we assess the full $60.
Yes, but that's only, yes. But that full $60 is only for the first 2 years.
Okay. I'm just trying to...
Yeah.
Trying to create,
if you're to max it out, if you're to max it out, It would be $60 for the first 2 years. And then, as I said, it would drop down to, oh, come on, don't do that to me right now. I'm on Zoom. Bear with me, guys. Yeah, it would drop down considerably it'd go from 60 to 30 to 30 to 30 to then to $20. The way that I have it set up right now, if you wanted to max it out. But you can, as I said, you can set it up and say, I just want to do 20 for the entire thing for the first tranche of bonds if you wanted to.
So does that, the way you just explained it, sounds like in the end, that saves people money. It's just a bite at the beginning.
It saves the community money.
Right.
Right. It saves the community to the member. And that's the way the bonds work, where it's like, you know, when you do the bond refi, we saved $1 million or $2 million. It's like, that's the community's money. To the average person, it's not going to be that big of a deal, right? For this one here, you know, it's better for the community, but to the average person, you're zinging me with a tax right now, a full $60 tax.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I kind of agree. It's like, you know, a 15-year home mortgage is better than a 30-year home mortgage, but what's the problem with it? I'm having to pay more right up front.
So, Greg, can I ask a question? And I was thinking about this whole situation and how the measure we're supposed to form this committee.
Yeah.
Of which we have a resolution before us tonight. And in reading the bylaws of the committee really is only responsible for how the money is spent.
Correct.
Okay. They have nothing to do with how the bonds are sold.
And they have nothing to do with telling you how to what to spend the money on. Correct.
Okay. But I guess my question is we're in the middle of this crisis. We're supposed to form this committee. And maybe this is backwards thinking, and maybe this is totally out of their scope. But if we're supposed to form a committee that's supposed to advise us on how to spend these funds.
No. Their role is to make sure that we are spending it on modernization projects, that we're not spending it on trips to Hawaii or
a new district office.
Okay, so this committee is not going to go out and say and list priority. If we have 12 priorities that we want to spend this money on, they're not going to meet and say, well, we should do priority. You know, they're not going to rank those. Okay.
No. They are just making sure that we are following the law about what we're doing with the money.
Okay, and the reason I was asking is because if we don't, and I don't know how much of specific list we have. I know there's a bunch of needs out there, and all the ed buildings are falling down and all this. I guess I'm trying to figure out what, you know, when we were going through this bond, and maybe this is a question for staff, you know, what was your hope for the next year? I mean, how much money do you want to raise right now? Or
we don't know yet. We don't know yet. We don't have any projects that are close enough to do anything with. We haven't even started talking about, we can't even get anybody up here to look at anything right now. I mean, it's going to be a while before we are able to do anything. The only benefit of selling them right now is that we know that interest rates are fairly low. So the cost over the length of the loans or bonds would be less than they might be if interest rates go up in the future. So that's the opportunity cost here, is you're taking a chance on interest rates going up and costing us more over the life of the bonds.
Okay, so what would happen if we said, okay, let's sell the bonds as planned, but let's only charge the community $30 instead of 60 because of this whole thing that's going on? Greg, what long-term, short-term and long-term result would that bring? You said we'd have $760,000 to spend next year.
Oh, no.
We're probably not going to be ready to spend it next year.
Okay,
sounds like so.
So how it works? Great question. So how it works is it's not how. So you sell this 13 or 12 million bucks, and we go through this whole process, and in about let's just say 45 days, you will have $12 million in your account, and Wendy's going to say, I can't spend 12 million bucks right now. I don't even have 12 million bucks anything to do.
Hawaii.
right? And so that's another thing where when I talked to staff said, oh, I don't know, we can't even get a project. We're not an OPSC, we DSA, we got this whole architect stuff. So all we're doing is we're just going to sell this. And I said, well, there's pros and cons to just selling it. So the IRS knows that things happen. Okay. Like, so they give you pretty much 3 years to spend the money. Okay. And so some people would say, well, why don't we wait till next year to sell the bonds? And which, sure, maybe you want to wait till next year. And so when I told Wendy, I said, the only reason why you would sell bonds now are for 2 reasons. One, the fact that interest rates are as low as they are, and which is you're going to save your community probably, if we can lock in now, over $1 million more than we would have if we would have sold these 5 months ago. Okay, $1 million, that's real money. Okay, and then
what is that? Sorry to interrupt. You keep saying $1 million to the community, but not much for the individual. Because
it's $1 million collectively spread out over time. So that's $1 million less that your community would come up with spread out. Okay.
So we have no idea for a family, or we have no idea what that means for.
I mean, it's honestly.
Is it pennies, dollars?
Well, if you mean over the life of the bond?
No, like if we
mean $100.
So that's not nothing.
But it's spread out over $3 a year. Let's just say $3 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But Greg, doesn't that reduce the number of payments, not necessarily reduce the size of the payment? So if we're saving the community $1 million over time, it means that instead of paying on it for 29 years and 11 months, it may be 29 years and 2 months.
Yeah, or by locking in low rates now, it would allow your second bond sale or your third one. Normally we're shooting for 30 years. Maybe it'll only have to be 28 years now or 27 years. No, it's, as I said, financially speaking, if I don't care what you guys do. I'm not here to push you to do one thing or the other one. But I'm just saying, if you're strictly asking me on a financial level, does it make sense to sell right now? The answer is yes, 100%. On a financial level, right? That's taken away all the politics. That's taken away COVID-19. That's taken away all the stuff, which that's what you guys can decide. I'm telling you financially with no, I have no emotions in this. And I have no friends in Fort Bragg. Well, I have one from high school, but I don't know anyone else in Fort Bragg who I have to see at the local store, right? And so And so if you had to say what's the other thing is, so you sell these bonds and you lock in a low rate and it saves your community more money than we would have thought than before. And then number 2, the other benefit is you get to collect interest on this money for up to 3 years. That sits in there. So $12 million. Wendy, you have your math calculator in front of you. I saw even if you were earning 1% on $12 million and you held on to it for 2 years, what is that? About 250 grand?
Yeah.
So you get an extra $250,000 to spend on whatever you wanted, construction wise, whether it's computers or technology or whatever. It's gaining interest there. One would argue, if I wanted to play devil's advocate and say, wait, so you're taxing our community, you're just going to sit on it for 2 years and I'm paying on it, right? I mean, there's not a right answer.
Well, I honestly don't think we have the luxury of sitting on it for that long. I think a roof will fall through, somebody will fall through the floor. I unfortunately don't think we have that much time.
Yeah.
So, Greg, you keep saying financially it helps the community, to sell now, but I'm thinking of it from the other side, right? So if we sell now, we'll save the community a family, taking this example, $100 over 30 years because of the low interest rates. Or we could wait and save a family $300 in November by not having to, or however much their land is, by not having to pay for this bond.
By not, you mean by waiting a year?
By waiting this November for waiting a tax bill.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's like
you could wait till the tax bill hits. I mean, in order to be on the tax rolls, you have to alert the county, I believe, in the next 2 to 3 months. You could sell in September. You could sell it in November, you know? I mean, as I said, it's, in my opinion, there's no right answer or wrong answer for what you guys decide to do, because we could debate both sides on which one is better.
I just think, and now I'm getting into my opinion, and then I'll be quiet for a while. But I think that it's more important right now to save families money when their tax bill comes, rather than saving them $3 a year over 30 years. So if we can, now I don't understand. I know you said what Ukiah did, but if we can get some money by selling some bonds for immediate needs without taxing, I don't know if we can hold off on tax rules for, I guess it's a whole year, right? Because their bill's just split in two. So if we can get some money now, or in 6 months from now, because like you said, we're not going to be able to get anything done probably for at least 6 months, and not put on the tax rules, even if it costs families $3 a year over 30 years, it's going to again save them a few $100 when their tax bill comes.
So your opinion, just so I can understand, is you're saying don't get on the tax rolls this November. If you could sell bonds, but don't get on the tax roll.
Yeah, I get, yes.
Okay.
But that does cost the district more money.
Well, it'll cost the tax base more money spread out over 30 years.
And how much are we talking? And
a year's worth of capitalized interest.
Yeah.
How much?
A year's worth of capitalized interest.
Yeah, and I don't have a number in front of me, but let's just say that it'll cost you an extra $1 million spread out over 30 years. So it'll cost the average person an extra $3 a year.
Okay, so what I'm hearing
after this year.
But hold on, I need to clarify something here, because Greg, you keep saying that it's going to cost more, like $3 a year, or it's going to cost less. The payment is not going to change. What changes is the number of years you will pay it. So you have to understand that when this hits the tax bill, the taxpayer will see that same rate in perpetuity until they sell their house. And then what happens is, if we're saving the taxpayers money, what we're doing is we're saying, instead of paying your car off in 5 years, you get to pay it off in 4.5 years. The payment hasn't changed.
Right.
The payment has not changed. So so just to clarify that, no one's going to see $3 less on their property tax bill.
Mm-mm. It's the community savings over the length of the payments.
Right. So
because the tax rate, because we're talking about hypothetical situations. So it's not like, oh, someone's going to save more than this. I mean, you can always do these calculations after the fact and say, well, had they waited, or had you done this now, this would have saved you this much money. It's just a matter of how do you want it to look, because you could sell $12 million, follow the exact timeline, say, I don't even want to be on the tax rolls. And then, so on people's tax bill, it'll say 0 for this bond sale. And then the following year, it'll say $60 or 40 or 30, or however we want to, scramble the egg. Or you can say, you know what, I want to do 60, or let's kind of meet in the middle. Let's do 20. I mean, as I said, it's just a matter of, what I told Wendy is, do you want to lock in really low rates now, or do you want to wait a little bit?
Okay. So I have a question. So you said it would take about 60 days to get the money once all the paperwork is done and all said and done.
Yeah.
But Wendy also said that we can't even get anybody to walk on the premises to give us bids or tell us what we could do. I also heard that we have 3 years, once we get the money, 3 years to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
So the gamble is, yes, they may raise the rates. I can't imagine that happening in the next few months, but
bond rates?
I couldn't imagine. Pardon me?
Bond rates?
Well, yeah. I don't know. I just feel like, I could be totally wrong. I don't even know what I'm talking about with bond rates, but I feel like putting money out of people's pockets, taking money out of their pockets at this point in time just absolutely doesn't feel right to me. But, and I also, if we can't get anybody on the premises even to give us a bid, there's no point in getting money now that we only have 3 years to. I remember the high school being remodeled and it took a long time. So I don't know. I feel like for me, I feel like we could wait. If we waited till August, then it would not be on next year's tax rolls. People would not be hit with it in 2021. 60 days, I guess the bond rates could change a lot, but
Greg, I want to ask you the question. If we waited till August and didn't sell bonds till August, like Mary just suggested, that's a cost to the district, correct?
Well, not to the district, right?
Of the capital. It's a cost to the overall amount collected because we would not have it on the tax rolls in December.
And we would be accruing interest already.
But it sounds like
accruing interest, but I mean, truth be told, to the average person, you're not going to recognize it on your tax bill, right? Just like where when I say, oh, you can save this extra money, and I'll save the average person because it's going to be such a minuscule tax rate. Okay, so if you were to do it, it's just a matter of $1 million. Let's say you have to pay an extra $1 million of this capitalized interest spread out over 30 years. To each individual taxpayer, so as opposed to $29.75 is how much it normally would have cost, but now it's going to be a $30 tax rate. That extra quarter for each person is going to pay this off.
And how frequently do the bond rates? I guess they change; they fluctuate all the time. But
this will be scary. This is when I think what scared Wendy when I first said how outrageous these bond rates are right now. I have it up in front of me. So when I'm going to go back to, what's the date today? The 14th. I'll go back 2 months ago. So 2 months ago in March, the rate for a 30-year AAA MMD gold standard bond was at 232. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, it went up to 337. So it went up 100 basis points. And then 6 days later, it went down 150 basis points to a 192. And then went up to 2 weeks later, it went to a 259. And then it went down 2 weeks later to a 190. Then went up to a 228. And then a 216 May 1st. And right now we're at a 190.
So it fluctuates a lot.
It's been all over the place. And the lowest in the history of bonds was on March 9th, it was at a 138.
Wow.
On the 30-year AAA MMD. So we currently right now it's not perfect science, but we are approximately 52 basis points away from the lowest in the history of bonds right now.
So it seems to me like, though, these are two separate issues. It seems like one decision is, do we sell bonds now or not? And the financial genie in me says, yes, of course, why wouldn't we? Not so great for the investor, but it's great for us. The second issue is, do we charge the taxpayers in November?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like those two are not necessarily connected.
No.
And so, yes, if we don't charge them in November, we may be paying more as a community, 30 years from, over time for 30 years, whatever, but it's going to save the average homeowner here $200, something like that, when their tax bill comes in November. So, I mean, I don't know if we're in discussion yet, but to me, it's kind of like
we're going to save them $200 when their tax bill comes in November. That's not what it's going to save them. It's going to save them over the length of the payment of the bonds.
I keep hearing that we don't have to have this on the tax bill, on the tax roll in November.
True.
But to me, that means that it's zero, right?
That's true, but I think if you don't put it on the tax roll and you sell the bonds, you're eating up the savings that would happen by buying early or buying now. So in my opinion, that is kind of if you're after saving the taxpayer, those two are going to cancel. I mean, not directly, of course, I'm not a genie, but with a bottle. But to me, in general speaking, those are going to count out. I have a couple different points that this is not a hill I'm going to die on, and I'm not going to argue with anybody, but there's a couple other things that I've been thinking about. And one is that I like the idea of kind of easing into this. I don't think the economy, and this is my personal opinion, I don't think we're going to rebound. I don't as fast as or go. I think this is going to be a long haul. We're going to be dealing with this for a long time. So I kind of like the idea of doing $20 this year so that taxpayers can kind of ease into it, and it's not all of a sudden $60 per 100,000. Also, so second point is that I'm also kind of a little impatient, and I worry that if we say, okay, we're not going to sell the bonds, we don't want to, and I'm not, please don't think I'm being insensitive to what's happening in our community. I'm well aware of, what's going to happen to the economy. But I also know that our schools, some of them are in dire straits. And I'm worried if we don't, even though we can't physically get somebody here, if we can do everything and it stays in the forefront of our minds, we will be ready the second somebody can come. And I'm worried if we say, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to wait for a whole nother year. I'm worried that we're going to have all this other, crap to deal with, trying to get kids in school and how that's going to look and what's going to happen with that shit.
Oh, Kathy, you lost your mic.
She was in the zone too.
My headphone just died. Sorry. So nobody's doing dishes at my house, but then now I forgot where I was. Anyway, maybe I made my point, but being ready. So I want to make sure that we can get alt ed and we can get the leaky roofs and the things that are real bad done as soon as physically possible. And anyway, there's my 2 cents, and now I'll go back to me.
Let me jump in here, Kathy, because believe it or not, I think I'm going to lose my battery on this thing before the meeting's over, so I may fade away to nothingness. So, Greg, if we go ahead and sell bonds, we have to sell all that money within 3 years of like the $12 million?
You're supposed to. I mean, you have a little bit more flexibility as well. It's like 85% within the first 3 years, 15% in the years 3 through 5, because things come up and things change and stuff happens. So yes, if you can't spend, the rule of thumb for me is if you can't spend it in 3 years, so by the summer of 20 to 21 to 22, by summer of 23, if you can't spend the 12 million, then you shouldn't sell $12 million.
So here's my doomsday scenario worry. We go out and we sell $12 million worth of bonds. Virus comes back. We're in just total hell for over a year. We can't get anybody up here, and then we're jammed up against how to spend $12 million in 18 months. So
that's where nothing's going to happen to you. You just don't get to collect interest on it after 3 years.
Okay.
You're not going to get in trouble. I mean, I have school district clients that sold their bonds and they sat on them for 8 years. Or they sold a piece of it and they couldn't spend all of it, and like, I can't even spend it right now because of what we put our project list in, and we had certain bullet points we could spend the money on. And we actually spent it all, and we still have $2 million and we don't have anything to spend it on. So you have the ability. I mean, you can actually give the money back. I mean, because even in Mendocino County, I think it was Arena School District passed a bond like in 2004 to like build a new elementary school. Passed the bond, sold the bond, and then they realized they didn't need it anymore. And so they ended up just saying, well, here's the money, we're just going to give it back. So now you don't have to pay anything anymore. So you have lots of flexibility with this stuff. The biggest thing to do when it comes to bonds, to be totally honest, is 2 things. Number 1, don't spend bond money on things that weren't on the project list.
Right.
That's a problem, politically, financially, legally, everything. And then the other thing is, don't tell your community you're going to, spend the money on roofing needs, and then you're going to go build the Taj Mahal district office. Those are bad things. Or LA Unify, they spent, it was like $100 million on computers. Like, that looks bad. Okay. But besides that, as I said, things change all the time. Bids come in, higher than what they thought they were going to be. Bids sometimes come in lower, and you guys have the flexibility to make adjustments when you need to. I personally don't think you're going to have any problem spending that money in a 3-year period. I mean, Wendy, you tell me, can you spend that money by summer of 2023?
I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I don't know. And it's not that we couldn't. If the world were normal, we could absolutely.
Yes. No, you're
right.
But
Jerry made a good point. We have no idea what the next 6 months or a year are going to bring.
You're right. You're right. I mean, no one knows.
So I just want to clarify a point about the tax bill, and we can choose how much is assessed on this coming tax bill. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I like the idea of having our own district CARES Act, and let's sell the bonds. I think instead of spending $12 million, we don't have to spend it. We'll get interest for 3 years. Great. Then we'll stop getting interest. Too bad. Sorry. Whatever. I think we need to give our community our own little stimulus thing, not add to taxes in November, and sell bonds. That's where I sit.
My last comment will be, I don't think the cost of items to repair are going down. We have a needs assessment, and I think if we wait any longer, we'll just kick it under the rug again. So I think this will make a priority that obviously we need other folks to help with the punch list, because we have lots of needs. We have a needs assessment that shows the repairs that need to happen. And I think, we always are underfunded. We're heading into a really weird budget crisis, but we're always school-wise underfunded. So I think this is how we do capital improvement. You get a bond, and we were lucky to squeak in this election. And I just don't know. I guess my question would be, this resolution's enabling us to sell, but at what point in that document process do we say that we want to do 20, or do we have to determine that tonight? 20 or a 60 or dollar.
It'd be easier if you gave direction tonight. Okay. Obviously, if things change, your administrative team can make that call. I mean, because you're given the authority to your admin team to move forward in the best interest of the district. But you can direct them to do what you want to do. But obviously, if things went crazy, like let's say you guys say, yeah, let's do this, and then 3 weeks from now, interest rates skyrocket. I would hope, and I would recommend to your superintendent and CBO, say, we probably shouldn't sell bonds right now because this is a terrible time to do it. I mean, and so this doesn't mean that you're going to, but it means assuming all these parameters are met, then you can pull the trigger.
Well, and if it was really a gloom day, you could say the investors would be nervous about investing if, everyone in Mendocino County couldn't pay their property taxes. If we all get hit and we all get sick, no one pays their property taxes, they're not getting their money. So, I mean, you could look at it that way too.
Yeah, I guess
that's really.
There is a question: are we going to be able to sell these bonds? It doesn't really seem like a hot bond market.
It's a hot bond market right now.
Okay, good.
Very hot.
Great.
Meaning, if you are a municipality selling debt, it's a very good time to sell debt.
Because there's people buying it.
Yeah, there's a yes. I mean, we had Ukiah for one of their first couple years of their bonds. It was 4 times oversubscribed, meaning that for the bonds that they were offering, they had 4 times the amount of people wanting to buy them.
It's a very safe, conservative investment in a troubled time.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted me to give you one extra plug on, a reason to potentially do it, I remember Del Norte County did this in 2008 when they passed their bond. And they're in the middle of the recession. Just like Fort Bragg, you guys passed your bond in 2008 too, same time frame, and sold your bonds during the recession. There is a little bit of stimulus to this, to where you can set up to where you hire local people to implement the construction projects. Yep. Your local plumbers, your local whatever. I mean, so this is for a lot of communities. Sometimes this is a little bit of a. I'm sorry, what?
I said not here.
Well,
We don't have DIR certified anybody here. I mean, we have a real hard time getting people here. I'm serious to do anything.
Now they'll have time to get it going. Maybe.
Yeah, because I know that Del Norte passed the resolution that said that half of all the construction jobs have to be given within the county. It was interesting, but that helped them out.
Okay, so are we ready to start chipping away at these 3 resolutions? Is there any other big questions anybody has? Anything from the public, Anna? Okay. Anything you want to add, Becky or Wendy?
Wendy, you were a board member on the last 2 bond initiatives. And clearly we had, at that point, there was much more planning that went into it before the bonds went out. The first bond, there was much more planning, and the second bond was to pay for the first one that we couldn't finish, correct?
Right.
Okay. So my only concern right now is that we have a needs assessment. That needs assessment is not incredibly accurate in the sense that needs assessment said that you could fix everything that we had for 20 million. I don't believe that for 1 second. So that concerns me. We will need to do some legwork to get the priorities mapped out for us so that we're not willy-nilly just saying, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. We do need to get organized, and we need to make sure that our community is behind us with the organization of how we attack the spending on this. Wendy, my question to you is, how do you see the timeline working to get this moving through your office?
Do you mean if we decide to sell that part of it, or the rest of it? Just
like how do you see this working with your office with what you're doing right now? Like what's your recommendation, I guess was what I'm at.
Well, from a workload standpoint, it's really a little intense for a few hours here and there. It's not an overly burdensome thing for this office as far as that goes. It's just looking at the timing of when we can actually come up with a plan and even a direction, So that part of it isn't a huge deal, except for the phone calls that we'll get in December. I get them every December this year, and right now we get them every year. So why is this on my tax bill? Well, it's been there for 20 years.
So Wendy, as somebody who's been through all this and now in the business office and knowing that side of it and having gone through the high school remodel and all of that, does it, in your opinion, make sense to start selling the bonds right now? Are we going to be in a position to get things going? Or, the risk, we have a risk either way, but the risk is losing this great rate, but there's also not being able to get the work going, and then the concern for the community and how, what they're going to be feeling. So, or is it better to do 20? I like what Kathy said. I thought that was a great idea.
Well, doing the 20 per, so if you have a $300,000 house, it's going to be $60 on your tax bill.
Right.
So, it's up to your feeling about the community's appetite for doing that when we don't have a shovel-ready project. Right.
And looking at our most pressing needs, which I feel like alt ed is, like Kathy was saying, somebody could go through the floor or something, and then the roof situation at the other schools, 2 schools. If we sold the 20 right now, would that give us money to get the roof done and get a start on, I think we're looking at modular units, so maybe that's something we could start putting together for alt ed. So just wondering if that's enough.
Well, the alt ed, the idea with the alt ed was I think, a possibility for that was prefab, and that's a good option for there. The you don't just call somebody and say, I want prefab buildings delivered next week to Dana Street. You still have to go through DSA. You still have to go through architects. You still have to go, there's a whole lot of, you have to go through ops. You have to go through a lot of things, even in that realm. And that's probably the easiest realm is a prefab building when you have most of a footprint. But we would have additional electrical, we would have additional plumbing, we would have, the footprint is not exact. And so there would be a lot of engineering of the ground because we know what that Dana Gray Field is like. So, I think even if everything were open and we could go to town tomorrow, I think we're looking at probably a year before we're putting shovels in the ground.
So typically all of this is done before you sell the bonds, or most of it.
Not all of it. I think so. With the other one, the history of the world in 2 minutes. Somebody crashed into Cotton Auditorium. It had to be repaired. They started repair and found dry rot. So that created, this whole domino of things that had to get done. So they came up with a very specific, because they had already started some of the design work there, they came up with a very specific list of, well, if we're going to do this, let's look at some of the other sites. And every time we turned around, the word dry rot showed up and everybody, panicked. So, but there was a very specific list of things that were going to be done or needed to be done, and a rough estimate of the cost. And then there were a couple of hurricanes, and the price of building materials and labor went, like we had built in, I think, 25% cushion over what the estimated cost was going to be. And it ended up being twice as much because construction rates and material rates escalated that fast and that high. So that's why we ended up not being able to finish the high school with the first one and going out after the second one. But we already had a very specific list of things, and we did a lot of value engineering to move things. We had a lot of options of things. This is a thing we can lop off. This is a thing we can add in. We can do this differently this way to save money. So there had been a lot of groundwork done ahead of time, and so we're a little behind the curve in that respect. And so I really think, honestly, it would be a year in a normal world before we're putting a shovel in the ground.
When even Mendocino Unified, who, they had this big laundry, facilities master plan done, they'll be able to get some things done next summer, but the biggest project for them is going to happen, I believe it's summer of 22. I mean, this stuff takes a long time.
And Mary, just so you know, when I spoke with some folks from prefabricated buildings, some of the builders, and asked what is the timeline for this? How does it normally look? From the moment you make a decision of, okay, we want that building, it's if we're lucky, it's a year, and the reason it's the engineering and the architecture behind it. Mm-hmm. And the footprint at Alt Ed, we are not going to get a prefab building that's going to fit miraculously in the same places as all the buildings are now. So that has to be re-engineered. And that's going to require some architecture, and that's going to require some plumbing, and it's going to require a whole lot. So if we were to go fast forward, if we had the buildings out of there and we had leveled land, and then we went to the company and said, okay, we want that one. It's still a year. We have all those portables there still. So if I were to give
you've got to pay for that. So we don't have money in our budget to pay for the architects to do the work ahead of time. So I don't think we can use that as a total reason to stall, because it's a year to get through and a year from then, because we have no money to pay for all the work that needs to be done, correct?
The pre-work.
Right. I feel like I'm still missing something big here because
hey, Kathy, I'm going to be back in 5 minutes with a charger on my battery. I'm going to run home and grab one. I'm sorry about that. If you want to take a break, or if you want to keep going, that's okay too.
What do you guys want to do? Do you want to take it's almost 9. I mean, we could take a break.
Sure, let's take a break.
I'll be back in 5. Thank you.
5 minute?
5?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're on 5.
I'll put it on mute.
What was that?
So I kind of looked at the clock late, but it's been about 5 minutes, right? Okay.
6.
Okay. But now we're missing 2. So nope, they're up. Okay. Do we want to go ahead? I mean, we know Jerry's coming back.
There he is.
And there he is.
Oh, and there he is. Boy, he was not kidding how fast he could make it. Okay. So, Scott, you were just about to ask.
Yeah, so first, thank you, fellow board members, for your patience. This bond thing is kind of a foreign language to me, and I keep hearing differing messages. One is, and Greg, I guess this is for you, but we have 2 choices in front of us. One is to sell bonds or not to sell bonds. And then within that decision is, do we sell 12 million worth of bonds or do we sell less amount of bonds? Is that correct? Am I right so far?
Yeah.
Okay. The second decision we have, and again, I'm seeing these as 2 separate things, is whether or not to put the bond cost on this upcoming year's tax bill.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's a range. We could do $0 or we could do $60. So we could still sell all our bonds and charge nothing. Taxpayer is what I'm saying. Immediate, yeah. Or we could do any variation thereof. And I just want to address this whole notion. I guess another question I have for staff is, and Greg, I don't know who's going to manage these projects, but I know when I was with the city and we had like something like the wastewater treatment plant, it's like a full-time position. And so I guess my question is, can we use bond monies for a project manager for bond projects? Mm-hmm. Like, can we, because I know staff is already maxed. And so is it in the plan to find somebody to do the RFPs and go through the bids? And I mean, there's endless paperwork. And I mean, I always felt bad for the people in this project of how much detail there is. Because I think that we should just have the money. Even if it takes us more than 3 years to spend it, we'll stop getting interest in 3 years. And again, that's sad for us, but we need the money. We have projects to do. The community voted to do this. And so.
But do you understand that no money will be paid on those loans or the bonds, excuse me? If we're not collecting.
And my understanding is that will it'll cost $1 million more over 30 years. Like these are the numbers we've been playing with. So in my head, it's like, okay, we don't get paid for this coming tax year, so it'll cost over 30 years $1 million more. And these are just varied numbers, but maybe my thinking is wrong. I don't know.
That just makes me nervous not having, I mean, that's for lack of a better, I mean, I feel, if I could just be comfortable.
If I would just, here's my 2 cents. If you're going to sell the bonds, then it needs to go on the tax. I don't think we sell and sit. I don't think that's, I don't think that's the strategy. If you want to wait so that it's not on this December, then sell in January or sell later. But if we're going to sell it, it needs to go on the tax roll. That's my opinion. That way we're not.
You kind of decided not to sell, but not put it on the tax roll. Is that right, Greg?
No, they just did.
They're ready.
Right, but they're putting 20 or they're only putting partial on the tax
50. Roll. No, they went 50.
So they did it all.
Yeah. $50 tax rate, and they sold a third of their bond.
A third. Okay, that's what it was.
And that's what we're talking about as well. It's a third.
Okay, and I saw nodding heads that we can hire a project manager for this.
Yes.
Once we have a project.
Okay, so are we at a place, does anybody need any more information? Are we at a place where we can go back and start? I asked that and we got derailed, I think, but because you're right, Scott, there are different things. I mean, these are kind of layered. And then even after that, it's not in these resolutions to do the tax roll, but we have to give staff guidance, right? Greg, that's how I understand. We pass these three, then we give guidance.
Say that, what about?
We pass the three if we choose to pass the three resolutions, then we would give the board kind of in that third discussion, the guidance on what to issue. Okay.
If you wanted to do that, I'd say this is what we'd kind of want to do. You know, just like where Becky said, my recommendation is Becky said, if you're going to do it, either wait till next year or get on the tax rolls for $20, right? Or whatever number you're going to do.
Okay, so board, are you at a place to make those decisions or at least start moving towards the big one at the end?
I'm going about 3 different directions right now, I think. I understand that we need a certain amount of money to have a project manager and do all the things that we need to do, plans and all that good stuff. Interestingly enough, when I went home, there was a quick conversation I had with my wife about a letter to the editor from a local constituent who said, why am I paying my property taxes on the CV Star Center when it's closed for the next 6 months?
Yep.
You know, I'm leaning towards liking the idea of selling in January just to give us some more clarity to what this whole thing's going to look like. But I hate to put off the repairs. I know we need them, but nobody knows how this thing is going to end up.
And then I kind of feel like you're back to the original. January is not much different than November. So if we sell the bonds in January, you still have 12 months before you're going to get any money to pay on them. So
True. I like the idea of the interest accruing for the taxpayer. But I don't want to wait another whole year because then if things shake out like we all hope they will, we want to get going on these projects. So it's a catch-22.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if we wait till January, it takes it off the tax bill, but it takes a whole other year to get the money. Is that what I just heard?
No,
our money. The taxpayers aren't paying. You're not collecting the revenue to make the bond payments, right?
We also have the option of selling the bonds and telling the county we don't want anything on the tax bill this year and let it sit and accrue, and then it would show up in 2021.
That's where I'm leaning.
But that's not. I don't like that idea because you're.
I'm just telling you that.
I understand, and I'm just giving you my opinion. I just feel like that's borrowing money that's not ours to borrow. I don't know. I just feel like that's not a fiscally responsible decision. If you want to wait, I understand why you want to wait, but then I feel like you're selling bonds and it's like taking out a loan that you know you can't pay.
Right.
I don't know. That one doesn't sit well with me.
Is it possible for us? I mean, we know we are going to sell the bonds at some point. We can pass or vote on our resolutions tonight. We have a meeting on June 18th. I know it's talked about possibly dropping it. Clearly, we need to have that meeting. So can we make the decision, having more time to process this and chew on things a bit, and make the decision of the date to sell? I know it's still a risk that the bonds could end up costing us more money. I feel like we're not ready to vote tonight on how much based on all this conversation.
I don't think we take action on that, right? We just give the district or the staff guidance, right? We pass these through resolutions, then we could have another discussion. I totally see where you're going with that, Mary, but we don't actually say, Wendy and Becky, this is, we just give them guidance and then they do it.
Right. I just don't want to make them have to do it right now, tomorrow. I don't want them to start the paperwork necessarily tomorrow. But we do have to decide it. Go ahead.
The third resolution gives them the authorization to sell the bonds.
Yes.
But it doesn't say when, right?
No.
Okay, so what you're saying is we pass that, yes, we do want you to sell bonds, but we want to come back and discuss exactly the timing of it all.
Right, and the amount, the percentage, whatever.
Well, the amount, okay, yeah, the amount of the bond sales in the resolution, but I see, yes, okay.
Yeah, I mean the 20 or 30 or the whole thing, whatever.
Right, okay.
Okay, so are we ready to go back to 10.3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, so this.
Yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is the resolution that just certifies that and take in the information that the county gave us.
Yes. I'll make a motion to pass resolution 20-06, certification of general obligation bond election.
Okay, and with the time that we have, are we okay with not reading them?
They're pretty lengthy.
Read them? Okay.
Right.
They are available online for the public. Anybody, and most of us, I believe, have all read it. So I think we're good on
35 pages for all three. Joyous read.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I'm sorry, in that worrying about reading them, we had a first and a second?
Yes.
Very second.
Okay. And any discussion?
No.
Okay, Anna.
Okay, Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, so then the 10.4 is simply to adopt the bylaws for the oversight committee. Now, was there a difference between the two sides? I didn't get them side by side, but they seemed very similar. What? Am I missing something?
I think so.
I'm not sure what you're asking. Sorry.
Well, I thought there were two copies of the same document in that bylaws, or was something different between the two? Because they detailed out who was supposed to be on there, and
I saw the same thing.
Oh, I think one was sort of like the explanation of it, and the other one was the actual bylaws.
Okay. Oh, I tried to read the title to see what the difference was, but okay. Gotcha.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution. We're not ready there.
Oh. Okay, I heard Scott first, and then we'll do Diana. Will you second?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
President Babcock.
Yes. Okay. So now we're to 10.5, resolution 20-8 for the actual sale of the bonds. Now, in theory, we could table this, correct? If we did want to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is there a reason to table it, though?
I don't think so, because we still have to give guidance, right?
Right. So I'm going to
Becky and Wendy, are you okay with us approving it and then having the discussion about when later? Is that okay with you guys?
Fine with me.
That's fine.
I just want to make a note. There is a whereas that says the district wishes at this time to initiate proceedings. Mm-hmm. Is that going to stop us from?
It's the 2-hour phone call.
Well, and it's saying, if the, let's say the bond rates drop to 0.3, we're gonna get back to you and say, okay, we're gonna go.
Okay, but this is not. I just want to make sure if we pass this resolution that it's not telling you to sell the bonds right now.
No.
Okay.
It is giving us authority to begin the process if we are ready to.
Proceedings. Okay.
Now, let's say the bonds did drop to 0.3, and is this an item that we could put on a special to have a quick, if you wanted more input from us about whether, I guess selling is not the same as putting on the tax bill. Okay, never mind. Back up. I didn't.
Okay, well, I'm going to move that we approve item 10.5, resolution 20-08, issuance and sale of general obligation bonds.
Can I ask a question before you second that? So if we do this and bond prices drop through the floor, and so do we have to could we call a special meeting and go ahead and give you direction to buy bonds at that point? Could we do it that quickly?
Yeah, that's what I was asking, whether it could be on a special agenda.
Yep. If rates drop to 0.3%, I would recommend that you don't do it and just the district lock it in no matter what.
So, Greg, my understanding is that when you pass this resolution, that gives us the green light to sell bonds. Now, Wendy and I are not going to move in any direction without the board's blessing. If you say in this open board meeting, hey, Becky, Wendy, if bond rates drop to 0.3, move like the wind, then we don't need a special meeting to do it because this resolution has been passed.
Yes, rates are not going to drop to 0.3%. So passing this resolution will just give you guys, will give us and the admin team to get our ducks more lined up, and to provide you guys better information. If rates dropped 80 basis points and we are at a new historic low and we see this trend coming, I would say, hey, Wendy, Becky, if I was you guys, I'd call a special board meeting, even if, 3 of them could get there to give you, to truly give you the direction so that there is, the public is aware of what's going on and why we're trying to supercharge this if this happens. I don't think it's going to happen, so I don't think we need to cross that bridge. But yes, you are right, Becky, on what it means.
So just to make it clear, if this resolution passes, I just want to make it clear for the public, this is memorialized, it's taped, it's going to live on YouTube. Hello, public. If you pass this resolution, it gives us the green light to sell bonds. I'm just saying publicly on the air, Wendy and I are not going to do anything without the board's specific consent. Fair. So even though you're passing this, it means that we can start the paperwork to get the behind the scenes stuff done so that we're ready to sell when the 5 of you at a majority vote say, go sell, go.
Yep.
Okay.
Which could even be in January.
But just again, duly noted that Becky and Wendy are not going out and selling bonds with this by ourselves. YouTube viewers who are there. You got to say, I've learned that you have to say things like 5 times before people believe you. And even on the 6th time, they don't necessarily do it. But you can replay this like 5 times.
Right. But the issue, it's not even really the bond selling, Becky, that's going to hit the taxpayers. It's when it goes on the tax bill.
Right.
So you guys could sell bonds because it was great interest. And then we come back and decide it goes in November. It goes next November.
Right.
And just to clarify, Becky and Wendy are not going to go out and sell bonds without the green light and blessing of the board.
Becky, when in doubt, just blame the bond guy from the Bay Area.
Yeah, who is Kristen Isom, according to
my 11-year-old. She uses this for a 5th grade class. Come on.
that's fabulous. We'll just call you Chris.
So do we want to add something to the motion to that effect? That we're passing the resolution, but requesting additional discussion on timing?
Sure.
That way
I don't think we need to.
Okay.
Do you want me to add that?
Clarity seems to be important, so it's up to you. But
I think it's up to Kathy. I'll go at Kathy's direction.
No, I think I'm in the minority about my opinion of these bonds. So, and it's your motion. So I'm going to put it back to you. If you want to add the caveat about memorializing the idea that we are not going, or Becky and Wendy are not going to sell, it's completely up to you. I trust.
I'll add that to my motion that Wendy and Becky are not going to go sell until further direction from the board.
Okay. Anna, do you have all that? Okay. And can I have a second?
I'll second.
And any further discussion? Nothing from the public? I think we got one last time, didn't we?
Hang on.
Didn't we get one?
Nothing from the public.
Okay.
There's 14
All right,
people
then.
watching there.
That's
14.
exciting.
14. Yeah. Okay. Trustee Paoli? Diana?
Diana, you're muted.
She said yes, but she's muted.
Okay. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes. Okay, so this will be on our next meeting, whether it's which June meeting or both June meetings. Greg, do we need anything else? Are we?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean,
does anybody have any?
I was gonna say, I mean, I think Wendy, Becky, and I know the direction you guys are looking, so nothing's gonna be done. We're just gonna still continue to work behind the scenes, get everything prepared for you guys, and then give you an update at your next June meeting on where things are. I'll give you an update on where rates are, and give you an idea on what everyone else is kind of doing and what the market looks like. And then you guys can say, green light, red light, yellow light, whatever you want to do.
And Greg, if there's a resource out there that's like school bonds for, whatever, I can read to better understand how everything relates to each other, that'd be awesome.
I will try to come up with something and I will email it to Wendy or Becky and they can forward it to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Greg, feel free to join us for 2.5 hours of your life anytime. This has been a hoot of a...
Hold on, let me get my tie ready.
Oh, no.
Oh,
There has to be worse sports than us.
This was fine. It was a breath of fresh air, to be honest. So,
well, he didn't have to drive. There was a plus.
True. Very
You
true.
got to be in a little room all by yourself, and your children are probably in bed by now.
3 of the 4, yes.
Okay. So there you go. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you
for your time.
Bye.
Okay, which segues right into our regular board meeting schedule of 2020. So Becky, do you want to take that one on?
So we have to approve the LCAP at a regular school board meeting, but that school board meeting has to be after another regular school board meeting where there's a public hearing to present the LCAP and the budget that goes with the LCAP. It's the, and Wendy, help me with the words here. I'm not sure if public disclosure is the right.
So we have to have a public hearing that precedes the adoption. So they said that that's going to be the case for the December adoption of the LCAP. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll have to have 2 separate meetings that they can be 24 hours apart. Mm-hmm. But we will have to have 2 separate meetings, one for the public hearing and one for the adoption, just like we usually do in June.
And it can't be a special. So we have 2 regular meetings in June right now. The question becomes, do you want to keep those 2 regular meetings? Because we will not be adopting the LCAP in June. We will need to add a second meeting in December, but it's going to be too late to bring in that regular meeting when we begin the new year. Typically in December, you make the new calendar. You make the new calendar for board meetings, but it's going to be too late. So we have to do it sometime between now and then. And then the next question is, do you want a special meeting? But we could talk about that in advanced planning at the end. But for right now, the big question is, do you want the 2 meetings in June? Okay. If you don't want the 2 meetings in June, then we need to amend the board calendar to remove one of those meetings. Then the next question is, when do you want to have the second regular board meeting in December to approve the LCAP? And it all has to be approved prior to December 15th. However, we have an election this year. And what are the new meeting laws? The new meeting law is that the new board has to be, or existing board, or just after the election, that those people have to be sworn in after the second Monday. I mean, it's something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't remember it. Does anybody remember it?
I don't remember it exactly.
By that second Monday. By that date.
Right. Before the 15th.
So we have it on the date.
Yeah, we set that meeting in December to work in with that date. So that December 14th was specifically picked to comply with that.
Okay, so if we do December 14th and it's got to be approved and submitted by December 15th, then either we have a regular meeting before December 14th, and then we use December 14th to be the regular meeting that blesses the LCAP and the budget. I think, Wendy, could we have a meeting on December 15th and approve it that day and submit it the next? I mean, it would have.
Yeah, I think the board has to approve it by the 15th, right?
Okay.
Is that the language? Is that what it says?
Let me go back and look.
Or does it have to be submitted to the county by then?
Because it would be nice if we could just have it on that Thursday. So another regular meeting, but you're saying it has to be in by then.
Okay, so it says here, the executive order extended the deadline for adoption of the 2021 LCAP from July 1 to December 15th. So adoption means that's the day you vote. So we could do it on the 15th.
But we need a meeting before.
Which we have on the 14th.
We already have on the 14th.
Oh, you're saying to do them back. Okay. I was thinking we needed to do one the week before.
It's up to you. You could do them back to back, or you can do them 1 week before and one, it's up to you. But we need to have 2 regular meetings in December to button this up.
And would it be possible then that we'd have potentially 2 new board members voting on this?
Yep.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So my thought is, I think we should wait to make this decision until we know whether or not there's going to be an election for board members.
There is an election. Oh, you mean later in the agenda?
If there's going to be on the ballot, like last time, Mary and I just got on because no one else ran.
But there's always an election for board members because you can always write someone in. There's always an election.
And you need to vote on the board calendar if you're going to make any adjustments to June anyway, and you have to do it today.
June, yeah.
So you might as well do them both at the same time.
This is the this is the last regular board meeting before the June regular board meeting. That's why we have to have that discussion right now. This can't be done at a special meeting.
Right, I got it. So is it just the 4th Thursday instead of canceling the 18th because it's just more time to deal with the budget? We'd have more to discuss.
Are you talking about
Normally, I guess neither one of them were on the 2nd Thursday. Okay, never mind. It doesn't matter.
We didn't do the 2nd Thursday this June because of graduations when we originally scheduled. Because if we did the 2nd Thursday in June and it was a normal year, we would be getting a board packet together in the middle of graduations. And when we did that last year, the board packet was not as stellar as it could have been. It was a little nutty.
Gotcha.
So we said, oh, brilliant. We'll do it the 3rd Thursday.
Is there a reason you redlined the 18th and not the 25th?
That's what I was just asking about.
Is there any timing issue?
Okay. The reason we redlined the 18th and our thought was to do the 25th was because of the nuttiness of the budget right now. And it was just hoping to give us a little bit more time for layoffs. But I have to tell you, we're going to talk about advanced planning. And when we start talking about the budget, I think we may need to have a special meeting this month, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, well, I suggest, just to speed this along, I can't make a motion, but we approve the June 18th removal and that we just schedule it for December 15th and be done with it. Nobody should have anything on their calendar right now because we don't know what's going to be happening in December 15th.
But do we need the time in June we still have to finish this bond or talk about it some more.
So the other thing you can do is you can leave both regular meetings on the June calendar and you can convene the meeting in June, have a very short agenda and say goodbye. The reality is that's going to be a meeting from home anyway, so you're not going to be too far away. And we had to do that once when Senator McGuire came in. I don't know if you guys remember, we had Senator McGuire doing a town hall. So we convened our meeting and then we
adjourned.
We adjourned. Thank you. I was like, what did we do?
But I think if we need a budget meeting or a bond meeting, we can just call special.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see what you're saying. That's true.
Yeah. And if we really don't know anything and all heck breaks loose, then we just have one meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually in favor.
But if Wendy has a whole bunch of information,
right,
we have a meeting.
I'm just in favor of adopting what's in front of me.
Right, but I did that as well as adding the 15th to December so that it's set on the calendar and we're done. We don't have to bring this up again.
Okay, I'm going to move that we approve the regular board meeting being that was scheduled. Wait a minute. Sorry, start over. Move we approve item 10.6. We drop the regular meeting of June 18th. And we will proceed with June 25th. And we will add December 15th as another meeting.
Regular meeting.
Regular meeting, excuse me. Yes, it's getting late.
And the fun has just begun.
I know we have. Oh, I can't wait.
A lot. All right, any discussion? Oh, wait. Second, please.
Anyone?
I can't do it. Sorry, kids.
I can't either.
I'll second. Why is no one seconding? I'll second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? And Anna.
Trustee Paoli.
Yes.
President Babcock.
Yes.
Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
Trustee Makala.
Yes.
And Trustee Mattson.
Yes.
Okay. 10.7. We need to tell the county that we need an election this year. And I don't remember. Things are a blur, I guess. I don't remember doing this before.
We don't know that we're going to need an election. I think there are timing things that have to be, and I didn't actually read the paperwork that came in on that. But
it came from the county office, and they have to get it signed off by Albright Unified, and then it goes to the county office superintendent, who then submits for all the different districts in the county.
Because right now we're just saying, yes, this is an election year, I think, for us.
And that there are two positions.
And that there are two positions, right?
Potentially.
I believe the idea behind it is to just notify the public.
Yeah.
But this doesn't specify that because one of these, are we back to all seats are 4 years? Is that what's happened? Okay.
Yep.
That's why there's no distinction. Okay.
So, but I don't actually see a is there, oh.
Well, I think this might in the newspaper.
Oh, to announce that people can go to the county.
Should be 2009. Yeah, 2009.
So I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 20-08, specification of election order.
I will second that.
But it should be 20-9, right? That's what, because 20-8 was the sale of.
No, it was the board meetings schedule. Oh yeah, no, you're right.
But that wasn't a resolution. No, it says on the item resolution 20-08.
On the documents in the folder, yes, it does. But then on the agenda, it says 20-9.
Oh,
so we need to have that correction.
Got it. Sorry. Yes, I'll adopt resolution 20-9.
So can we make the motion with the? Can we go back and redo the motion, please?
Yeah, I make a motion to adopt resolution 20-09, specification of election order.
A second.
Okay. And any discussion? Okay. Thank you, Anna.
You're muted, Anna.
I'm typed. Trustee Mattson.
Yes.
Trustee Paoli.
Yes.
President Babcock.
Yes.
Trustee Schneider.
Yes.
And Trustee Makala.
Yes.
Okay. So we're on to information and discussion. Now, we still have 20 minutes before we have to make a motion to extend the meeting. So, okay.
We're on
Who wants to take that one?
Okay, so the governor's budget was released today with how many pages was it, Wendy?
172 or something.
Yeah. So not a lot of people have had a whole bunch of time to go through it with any kind of specificity. So Wendy, do you want to give your 2 cents?
Sure. So essentially, there's a lot of shell game going on. They are going to reduce the LCFF funding by 10%. We don't know if that's applied to the entire amount or just the base amount. We're waiting for that answer. They are going to, the way they usually do, use some of the CARES Act money to funnel through to districts. So that'll make up a little bit of that, but that's not ongoing. That's one time. There are a number of programs that are going to also see cuts, including the Kudos program, the CTIG program, the Adult Education Block Grant, the Ag Incentive Grant. Those are the ones that most apply to us that I saw on the list. They're probably going to do some deferrals this year. That's not too much of a problem for us because I think our cash flow is going to be fine going between 1920 and 2021. But it's 21 to 22 that we'll have to be a little mindful of where our cash is at the end of 2021 because they're going to push off a whole bunch of money into July of 22 that we would normally get in June of 21. And that doesn't seem like, it's like, well, how does that help pushing it off by a week? And it helps because it puts it in a different fiscal year. So for them, since we work on a cash basis completely, it balances their budget by pushing a big chunk of expense out to the next fiscal year. So that's about all we really know right now. Special ed was held harmless, but it doesn't impact us at all anyway because our SELPA is the second highest funded SELPA in California, so we weren't going to see any of that extra money anyway. That was meant to shore up the SELPAs that weren't receiving as much money. And, and he was right. It could have been a whole lot worse. We had we've got a nice rainy day fund that they built up and, a couple of other reserves that they're just going to spend down. So hopefully this won't go on too long. And again, the question is it going to be a U or is it going to be an L? If it's an L, it's gonna be painful for a little longer. If it's a U, then in 3 years we might be back in a more reasonable place. So there are still a lot of questions. I've got a 3-hour workshop on the 19th that I'll be doing to get a lot of details, and all the organizations are going to be spitting out their little bits of drilling down into this. But the document itself wasn't as specific as we were hoping about some of these cuts. We knew the cuts were coming, but so now it's the going back and forth with the legislature and see if they are okay with this. There could be things that get shifted around again a little bit. For us, I think for next year, I think we'll be okay. It's going to be squeaky, but hopefully, if these numbers hold, we'll probably be able to get by. It's that next year that is really frightening because we just really don't know enough about what it's going to look like. So we'll have more answers next week.
And so I just want to pop in here. I think what we need to really make sure that everyone understands is that in January, we were hoping for a 2.29 COLA. That's what we were hoping for. And back in November and October, we were hoping for a 3% COLA. So when school started, we were hoping for a 3% COLA moving into July 2020. Then January came and that COLA was reduced to 2.29. And we said, okay, well, we can make this work. And there was a lot of one-time money that was involved in that. And so now we are here today. And what we're at is no COLA. So let's be really clear, no COLA. with a 10% reduction. And we're trying to figure out what that 10% reduction is. And I'm watching Wendy being very positive, kind of squeaking her head and stuttering and saying, we'll be okay. That is if we do some things right now. So I'm not trying to send off an alarm, and I'm not trying to get people panicked about their positions. We've done some good things so far. We thank you, Wendy and the board, for having a little bit of a reserve. It's not a whole lot of money, but if we need to use it, it's there. We have not frivolously spent. We have a lot of open positions right now that we are freezing. I asked you to pull the personnel action report, because I do not want to approve new hires that we just hired only to turn around and have to look at layoff notices. So we have some hard work ahead of us. I have to tell you, I am frustrated with the budget because just on a personal level, I felt like we were moving in the right direction, and then this pandemic has completely pulled the rug out from under us. So here we are. The hard part is I know what we're going to come up against at our next board meeting. When we start proposing cuts, which I'm going to be doing next week, Wendy and I are meeting with all the department heads and all the principals. When we start proposing cuts, we're going to have a line of people asking us to save every program in the world. And I need to say very publicly, a 10% reduction to our funding, 10%. That means that if we want to mitigate it, we can cut school out for 18 days and not pay people for 18 days worth of work. And that'll keep us exactly where we are right now. Not really, because PERS and STIRS are still going up. We still have step and column. We still have expenses that we have to take care of. So I'm not trying to sound the alarm. I'm just trying to help people understand the urgency with this. We are going to do our very best, our very, very best, to keep everybody employed who wants to work. But you may not be doing the job that you think you're doing right now. And that's the piece that I just want to reiterate, because the last time we came into a qualified budget, we had everybody pleading for every program. Folks, I'm telling you, point blank, I don't know how we're going to be able to keep everything with a 10% cut. I just don't know. Again, we are going to try and keep everybody we possibly can, because we want to keep our community employed. We want to keep our programs for our kids as much as possible. But hear me loud and clear. 10% is significant. It's not just 10%. It's 10% and no COLA. I would have much rather it was no COLA, and we could have dealt with that.
And the other thing that's making this so hard is we don't know what next year is going to look like. We have no idea. And we have to really start thinking about, this is going to be hard. And it's also hard because with the other, like the recession and everything, that was sort of a little bit of a slow roll. It was the hurricane coming across the ocean. You could sort of see it coming and try to prepare a little bit for it. This is like, an earthquake. I mean, this just happened. And it's going to be painful. It really, there's no sugarcoating it. It is going to be painful, but we're going to have to figure out a way to muddle through it. And like Becky said, we may have, try to keep all the same people around, but they may not be doing the same thing they're doing right now. We may have to be creative with how we are using the staff we have. And it'll be a little easier once we know what the fall looks like. I mean, that's what's so hard is in normal times, we knew how many classrooms we had. We knew how many teachers we needed. We knew how that was going to work, who was going to be in what room. We don't even know how many people are going to be in rooms yet. So it's very frustrating to have so many things that are not settled, that you don't know. It's very hard to wrap your head around a piece, because you can do all this work and figure it out, and then the day after tomorrow it's going to be okay. Well, we'll throw that 2 days worth of work out, because that's not what it's going to look like. So it's going to be a challenge. Like I said, I think because of our carryovers and the reserve, we'll get by next year. It's that out year that, it's scary.
And so I just want to remind folks that there's what we're about to do over the next month. Number one, it's not personal. We are going to have to make some tough decisions. And Wendy and I, like I said, will be meeting with every principal, every admin team, and every department director to really go through the budgets and through personnel and start making some very, very difficult decisions. And I will guarantee you right now, we will not make everybody happy. And I will guarantee you right now that we will more than likely get a whole bunch of pushback on several different things. It is unavoidable. You cannot make this kind of a cut and having people come back at you with a smile saying, good job. It's just, so I'm giving you a warning because number one, I think we need to have a special meeting. I think we need to have a special meeting prior, either right around June 1 or prior to June 1, because one of the things that we have to look at is that when the details of this come out with a little bit more specificity, we might have to lay off some positions. For classified, we have to give them 60 days. So that means if school begins August 19th, and that's the goal, to have school begin on August 19th, then we have to do a layoff notice to classified employees prior to June 19th. So we hit that 60-day threshold. But in truth, our employees come back to work prior to June 19th. So if we do something before then, that would give us a little wiggle room. The hard part with this, again, I want to say it out loud. We want to try and keep everybody working who wants to work. We have not filled a slew of positions, and 8 to 10 positions. We haven't filled them. We have a hiring freeze. That's going to help. It's going to keep people on the books, but we're not going to get everybody happy here. We will know more about the budget in the coming weeks. Next week, we are planning, like I said, to meet and figure out where we can cut. There are things in the budget that we have we're going to have to make tough decisions. And I don't even know how to say it any more than that. I've said it 5 times, so just be prepared. They're going to be tough decisions. You get to arm wrestle it out. You can tell me, no, Becky, no, Wendy, don't do this. But the reality is, when it comes down to it, we need to find that 10%. And there's no way around that. Kathy, you're muted.
We're at 9:51. So let me ask the board this. Do we want to try to plan a special and move the board policies to the June regular meeting? Or do you want to make an amendment to go past 10 and get through this?
Does the staff think, is the board policies, are these something we need to deal with right now? Or can we hold off? Okay.
The only bummer is then I got to go back through them because they're fresh right now.
But the only thing, let me give you a 2-second thing. The majority of them are just legal fixes. And there are 2 that I was going to recommend that you table and not even do because of the impact to the bargaining units. The ones on remote learning.
Because there's a few with optional where those, I'm fine with.
And if you have a special meeting, you can move the board policies to that special meeting. That's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. You got to repeat that, Diana. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, we lost you, Diana.
Oh. Well, or we could look at it that we just in the meeting to 10:15 and try to bang it out. I mean, if there's a few missing, there's only 8 options. I was just saying, or we could just extend the meeting to 10:15 and try to just push through. Still, sorry.
I think she's saying to go to 10:15.
Can you hear me now? I was thinking of extending the meeting to 10:15.
But if we can't hear her, that's not going to work very well either.
And just try to push through since we've read it.
It's only discussion. You're not voting on the board policies right now.
I think if we're going to have 2 meetings next month, let's just do them then.
Okay.
Is that
okay?
I mean, I could go either way. Jerry, do you have an opinion?
No, either way, I don't care.
You guys are a lively group. Here's what I suggest.
Okay. Let's wait till next week. Sorry, let's wait till next month.
Okay, next month.
So can I make a comment on the budget real quick? You know, 10% sounds horrible, and it is horrible, but not nearly as bad as a lot of other public agencies are going to have to deal with. And I think as you guys meet and discuss things, obviously the top priority are things that are required by the state to get the money, and everything else, you know, you guys look at and prioritize for us, I think.
We'll get through it.
That sounds so easy.
I know.
So there is a provision in Ed Code, which is why we need to have a special meeting, because we have a timeline that we're going to have to follow if we do summer layoffs. So I would rather do it sooner than later. But do we want to let people get through graduation and do it after graduation? Do you want to do it before? We could talk about that. Diana, you're in and out still.
It's frozen again.
I think we need to work on Wendy's timeline. You know, when
I vote for June 8th.
Is that a Monday? Because 5th is the Friday.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Me?
Nothing on my calendar.
Wendy, are you good with June 8th?
We should have some pretty reasonable guidance by then. I mean, you know, it won't be done, but it'll be, you know, we'll know where we stand, you know.
And that still gives you time, Becky?
Yes.
Okay.
I have meetings on Mondays that go till 6. Would this meeting start at 6, or will we have to start earlier?
We'd only have to start earlier if we had a closed session, or we could do closed session at the end.
Okay, I may miss closed.
Do we need closed session?
Yeah, if it's a special meeting, it doesn't matter what time it starts. You can do it.
Okay, I have a standing Monday from 4:30 to 6. That's all.
So shall I put it down?
And
for 6 o'clock?
we do have Becky's evaluation we need to do at one of these meetings as well.
Do it with the next one, because that I'm sure public opinion of me will be great at that one.
They don't get to come to that.
I'm sorry, that I'm not supposed to be sarcastic on these. I always get misquoted. Sorry.
It's
we'll
on
put
YouTube.
it on.
You can't get misquoted.
We'll put it on the next regular meeting, not the special, so that we could do it at 6. And I think if we need closed session, we'll just do it at the end.
Sounds good.
Or do you want to do it? Do you want to do it Tuesday and have it at 5? So that Scott can be. Or
quit giving us.
Who's talking? That's only 2 options. Usually we have to go through weeks to find a date. Okay, the 8th then. That's one more day for them to give layoff notices if necessary. Or if we have to have another special to decide.
And please, let me just say out loud again, layoffs are not something that we take lightly. We are really going to try as best we can to save every single job. Let me repeat that. We are going to do the best we can to keep the people who are working. That's our goal. Our goal, number 1, is to make sure we are doing the best thing for kids. That's always the number 1 goal. Number 2, we're going to try and keep people who want to work working.
Okay, so we're down to 3 minutes. And do you want to say anything about the physical distancing as far as the planning for the fall, or are we going to cover all that on the 8th?
Well, let's cover it on the 8th. Let's remind people, please enroll for kindergarten if you have a kindergarten person, so we have students. We will know more. I don't know if we're going to know more by then or not, but the state is going to give some type of guidelines at some point. Have no idea when, but we're pretty sure we're going to have to do that.
What about the parent survey? Was that
The parent survey is going
this meeting?
The parent survey is going out on Monday. And basically it was the survey that we talked about in the letter that was just sent. Asking parents, what are you thinking? Just giving you give us a pulse of what you're thinking for the fall. Would you like a traditional independent study? Traditional independent study is you meet with your teacher for 1 hour a week, you get your assignments, and you go home and you work independently on them. Come back the next week for an hour, you turn in your assignments and get your new ones, and you go home and work independently. That's traditional independent study. Do you not want to come on campus at all, but you want to have remote learning and have virtual classes? Or do you want on-campus instruction at whatever the state deems is appropriate? So we just want to get a pulse on what parents are feeling. It doesn't mean that you're giving a commitment, and that will all be in the survey.
Okay. And there's a copy of it in the packet for you to look at.
Okay, so we are coming back on June 8th for 2021 planning. And then also,
1 minute.
Are we doing board policies that night, or are we doing them on the regular meeting?
It's just discussion. If you're going to vote for them at the regular meeting, I would just encourage you to do the discussion on the 8th. Okay. And then I don't think we've taken care of the other future board meetings. I just want to make sure that we mention the COVID-19 resource page and the parent resource page that are both on the homepage for the district. There's great resources there that the staff, Anna and Peeps, have put lots of time and energy, and please check those out for our families. Okay, anything else?
It's 10 o'clock. Motion to adjourn.
It's 10 o'clock. Okay. Can I have a second, please?
Second. Thank you, Tech.
Okay.
Nate.
Thank you, Nate. Nate's pretty wonderful. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you for staying up with us.